Jay Crawford, Adam the Bull, Garrett Bush, and so many big names, it would take me hours to say all of their names. The ultimate Cleveland sports show. Booyah!
Tuesday!
Here we are.
The sports show. We've got some disappointing Guardians news that we're going to get to.
Brutal.
In a minute. Man, you built up so
Oh,
long.
Jay does not have his mic on.
The pro's pro forgot to put on his mic.
That's a rookie mistake.
Disappointing Guardians news today. We're going to talk what have the Browns impacted more, the defensive line or wide receiver, what's been the biggest impact, and Caris Levert. What a run he's had here of late. No more of this overrated Isaac
Who is this
Okoro.
guy that they
Talk
call
about
Caris Levert now?
He's a real player.
He doesn't look like the Caris Levert we saw the first 4 months of the season.
No, but he's played great of late. And none of us trusted him when we played that game last week.
I'm still not sure I trust him in the playoffs.
No, how could you?
But I trust him a little more.
Caris Levert is a Casanova, if you didn't know.
We'll get to the Guardians news, but how
Right
disappointing. From the time the season ends to the new season begins, it's just a crescendo builds. The excitement peaks, opening day, just, hours away.
Right.
And now we find out that there's some bad news for the Guardians. We'll get to that in just a bit. Your bet. Did you win last night?
I did not. I had
Damn.
the under in the Pistons Bucks
you
game.
felt good about that, too.
Felt very good about it. I think it went way over.
It went way over.
Yeah, the Pistons scored like 115 points. Where the hell
It
did
was
that come
126 to 117.
Yeah,
Very
that was-
high-scoring game.
So-
Defense optional.
Someone told me this once. You'll know McNuggets. I don't know. I don't bet NBA. I don't follow it closely enough. But someone said sure thing money in the NBA is to take the over on games late in the year that mean nothing to neither team because they don't play defense.
I took the over in the Cavs-Rockets game. It was
Yeah.
under by 30 points. So
from? Yeah. Well, that game meant
Wow, it
something.
was under by 30? What was the over?
But the Cavs.
229.
But
and
it
it
meant
was
something to the
108,
Cavs.
91.
And yesterday's. But I don't. But the Bucks game meant something to the Bucks. They're still trying to hold on to that one seed.
Yeah, but, I mean, it meant something to them, but it was, they could have rolled out their B team and won.
Sure,
So
that's true. Pistons stink. So anyway, but we'll try to bounce back today. The Cavaliers, remember, have 3 road games left. Before I get the details, Mikey, give us the read, will you?
Yeah, as much as Jay says there's free money, there's no free money in
No,
gambling. So keep that in mind.
Isn't that true?
And if you are going to bet, you might as well use Bet Rivers because it is one of the great sponsors here of the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. We love Bet Rivers, and now is the perfect time to join the Bet Rivers Sportsbook. When you use deposit code SPORTS, you'll get a second chance bet up to $500. That's half a grand. You get on all the action with weekly specials on your favorite sports like basketball and hockey. To help you win big, check them out at betrivers.com or download the BetRivers app today for the latest lines, odds, and boosts.
And I did 2 Bet Rivers podcasts yesterday. One in the morning about the Browns free agent additions over the weekend and the Cavs clinching the playoffs, and one last night on Lamar Jackson asking for a trade. So there you go. Now the bet of the day is the Cavs tonight. Cavs got to win their last 3 road games to finish over 500 on the road. And if they beat Atlanta tonight, I think they'll do it because they're playing 2 games with Orlando after that. I like the Cavs to win. They've been much better on the road of late. I think they're a far better team than Atlanta. Atlanta is battling for one of those play-in spots in the playoffs. But I love the way the Cavs are playing right now. I think we talked about this yesterday, about them keeping their foot on the gas here down the stretch, try to be as high as possible, win as many games as possible. I think the Cavs get it done. They'll win. Only have to win by 2.
And what's interesting now, these games, they are important for the Cavs. We thought that they were kind of locked in the 4.
Yeah.
Philly lost last night, and now all of a sudden they're just a game and a half out.
Right.
So,
I
know you got to look at it like they're 2.5 out.
Right, because of the tiebreaker. But they win out, they'll have a shot.
It's doable with the way these 2 schedules play out.
That's right.
It's very doable.
It is.
And what's the difference between the 4 and the 3? Well, for starters, you wouldn't have to play Milwaukee. If Milwaukee gets the 1, you wouldn't see Milwaukee in the second round. You'd see Boston. They're 3-1 against Boston this year, although I think all 3 of their wins were overtime, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, in the end, I don't know. It's a huge difference because you might end up with a tougher matchup in the 6th seed.
Yeah.
But still, I just think for a young team, you just want to play well going into the playoffs.
Get that mojo together. You feel good.
We got to start with Tristan McKenzie. We told you yesterday that he had a sore arm and that he was going to be out. We kind of speculated at that time that he wasn't going to be ready
I wasn't feeling
for
good
his
about
first
it, yeah.
start. I mean, otherwise, you probably wouldn't have even heard anything about it. But now comes news that he has a strain of, basically it's the big, strong, powerful muscle behind your right shoulder, behind your pitching shoulder.
Yeah, that's bad.
It is bad. The good news is that it wasn't anything that was torn or structural in that way.
Right.
It's just what we talked about. It's overuse early in the season. He probably ramped up too quickly, wasn't ready to go full speed, and now he's up to 8 weeks was what caught my attention.
And you wonder if that's why he struggled in spring training. Maybe it was bothering a little, and he thought he could pitch through it. Who knows?
Yeah.
He's a young pitcher. He's had injury problems in the past. A couple of years ago, he missed almost the whole season. We've talked about his size. He's 6'5", 165, I think we said yesterday. It's really unfortunate. I thought I was thinking, I'm doing my baseball preview on my Bet Rivers podcast tomorrow, and I was thinking until a week ago of picking him as like one of my surprise Cy Young candidates.
He was my dark horse.
Yeah,
Cy Young.
and this is a huge disappointment. Like they say, up to 8 weeks. Who knows? I mean, and even then, like if he's, what's he going to look like by the time we get to June? So, in my mind, I'm almost thinking like he's out for half the season. Now, hopefully it's not that bad, but for a rotation that I was already a little nervous about the back end. Now, Plesac's been okay. Savali pitched really well yesterday.
They've both been pretty good this spring.
I just can't get, I got to see them do it consistently when it matters.
I know you were down on both of them last year, but
Yes.
everyone I talked to out in Goodyear said the same thing. They were hurt. Both of them were hurt. They were pitching hurt all year. And that happens. I mean, when guys are trying to work through injuries, you're not 100%. And if you're bringing anything but your A game, you're going to get beat.
I'm a little worried. I'm a little worried about both. I don't think either's got great stuff.
No,
right?
But they were both really good 2 years ago.
They were. My concern, especially with Plesac, is I'm a little worried he's in that Bauer Clevenger mode of guy. Like he's like I'm not worried about that with Savale, but I'm a little worried about that with Plesac. Like he's got other priorities sometimes. Not that this on its own was that big a deal, but the whole thing with where they were out breaking the COVID rules, just the way he lied about it, I think that says something about your character. Yeah. And so I have some concerns there. Listen, they're going to need these guys.
Yeah, it's funny. Yesterday we were talking about how last year one of the things that they really had going in their favor was they didn't have any injuries.
Right.
They pretty much skated through the season. I mean, obviously Jose played with the thumb the second half, but he played through it, and they still made a little run in the playoffs. Those things tend to wash out over a large enough time.
Absolutely.
So if you go 1 year and you're super healthy, the odds are super against you that you're not going to do it again.
That's why I always caution people when they talk about who you don't need and why you don't need to go get somebody else. Because what happens is people forget, hey, bro, you got injuries that happen. Some 2 or 3 people can go down. This is just before the season. What happens if you get another 2 guys that go down, and it doesn't have to be for a long, sustained period of time. It could be a week. And you're looking around and saying, okay, well, what are we going to do in scramble? That's why I'm always aggressive when it comes to getting reinforcements because, if you're betting on perfect health, you're in trouble because that's just not the way sports works.
And I've been talking about, all offseason, I'm saying I'd like to see the Guardians get a veteran starter in the mix. Yeah. And I know you're relying on they got these young pitchers that they really like, but those guys are not starting the season in the big leagues, those top pitching prospects.
What do you think they'll do, Bull? Will they move Eli Morgan into the rotation?
It's a good question. He struggled when he started.
He did, but he looked a lot better out of the bullpen. And I wonder if he's figured some things out. Maybe they might give him a spot.
It's possible. That happened with Carrasco. Remember Carrasco really struggled?
I do remember.
They moved to the pen. He was great, and he was great after that.
They moved him back to the starting rotation.
And so they've had some success doing that. There's not a great option. Cody Morris is hurt right now.
Right.
He's starting the season, and so is Sam Hentges. I know he's not,
Right.
So they had the kid Xavion Curry, who they just sent down. He pitched a little.
Yeah.
You got, what's his name, Pilkington, who pitched a little last year.
He did. He had some spots started.
This is why, for a lot of people who are fringe baseball people, they get frustrated because you hear these names, right? You hear all of these great names of young pitchers, you got young players, but they're in the minors, right?
Yeah.
So you said something very, just off cuff.
Yeah.
All those young kids can't be brought up. Why?
I didn't say they can't.
No,
I'm saying they won't.
Why?
Well, in some cases, teams like the Guardians don't bring up guys right away for money reasons.
Clock.
And that's unfortunate.
Their big league clock starts
It's a
ticking.
bad part of baseball. Now, in their defense.
They did that with Frankie Lindor famously a couple years ago.
In their defense, I don't think these guys are quite ready to pitch in the
Do they
big
have
leagues.
options? Like, can't they go back once they come up?
They can.
Yeah, they can, but you don't want to do it too soon. Particularly, I think more with pitchers than hitters. A hitter can go through an 0 for 12. Hitters do that. I was worried with Eli Morgan when he made his first start, and I talked to him about this in Goodyear. I was at the game.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys remember. It was that game that the wind was blowing about 50 miles an hour. It was raining sideways, and they played it.
Yeah.
And the next day it was 60 and sunny, and they canceled it.
Right.
And no one could figure it out. And I talked to Eli about that, and I said, not only did they keep you out there, he was getting shelled. It was his first big league start.
Yeah.
I was worried that was going to set him back.
Yeah.
You know, I was just like, get that kid out of there before you damage his psyche.
Right.
And he talked about that game, and it can set a pitcher back. If a guy's not ready and he comes up to the big leagues and he gets shelled, now he's got that swimming in the back of his mind.
Their top 2 healthy pitching prospects have not had a lot of time in the high minors yet.
No, they haven't.
So I don't know that they're I'm not sure that they're quite ready
Bibby's
yet.
a guy they love.
I do hate when they don't call up guys. Not just the Guardians, other teams do it. They've changed the rules now to try to dissuade teams from doing that. It's bad for the sport.
Because,
I think so too.
Because one of the things that the Indians have an advantage of, and some of these other smaller market teams, is they have an advantage to the fact that they have a really good minor league program.
Right.
They got good. They scout well. They got prospects down there. So why not use that to an advantage? If you got guys that are getting hurt, instead of going out trading for big name guys, bring your young guys up.
Listen, we may see one of these guys. Bibby, for example.
I bet we do.
We might. I don't know if we'll see him right off the bat.
Yeah.
But maybe we see him 4 weeks in if But I'd love them. Like right now, teams are cutting down. Right.
Yeah.
The roster's got to be set by I think tomorrow night, maybe Thursday morning at 26. Right.
Right.
So there's some teams that have some pitching depth. Maybe you grab a veteran guy, even if he's a 5th starter, to get you 4 or 5 starts till you think you're ready. Maybe let Bibby get a few starts in the minors.
Yeah.
Get his feet wet. Okay, he's pitching great. Well, let's bring him up now.
I think the good news here is, at least in April, we're considering worst case scenario 8 weeks.
Right.
He's young.
Yes.
He's healthy.
Yes.
It might not be 8 weeks. If you can even push the
Sure.
timeline up to mid-May, you don't play every day in April.
No.
You know, you get
can
more
skip that
off
5th
days.
starter spot.
So you can probably stretch your starters out to 4 for the first couple of weeks.
Yeah, I'm going to look at
And
the
then
schedule,
once
in
you
fact.
get into a spot where you have 5 games in 5 days or 6 days and you need that 5th starter, maybe you call a guy up, give him a look, give him a start, maybe
Right.
Pilkington, a guy that's done it. I feel much more comfortable doing that with a guy that's done it.
Sure.
And then
I
you
think
just
that's
try to
the way to
bridge
go.
the gap till he's back.
Right. I think the way to go in the beginning of the year is with one of these guys who may not have the best stuff but has seen some big league time, or go pluck a veteran who's not going to make a roster.
I remember Tito talking. I asked, so who's going to be the guy this year? Because last year they had 17 guys made their big league debuts. And I said, it's almost, when you do the math, there's not going to be that much opportunity. The 2 corner outfield spots are now spoken for. Last year they were not. So there really isn't a hole that they're looking to fill like they were last year. And he said this, and others said this. It's baseball. There's going to be opportunities.
Always is.
Guys are going to be hurt. We believe that the guys that we put in to take their place are going to do just fine. So that's what we have to.
And
we
remember,
have to bank on that.
with young players especially, Jay, you know this, like, as good as Oscar Gonzalez was last year, if he's batting a $152 at the end of April, he's going to the minors.
You
Now, we
likely
don't want
will.
that to happen.
You might have a
but-
couple of guys that come up and you're like, man, you're trash right now. We got to sit you down, dog.
Yeah, Jimenez isn't hitting the ball great. I'll tell you who's hitting the ball great, and I know you'll dismiss it because it's spring training, and so do
Miles
I.
Straw.
Miles Straw's
I
hitting
know.
damn near 400.
My problem with spring training stats is
I know.
I'm not paying attention to who they're doing it off.
No, you're right.
Or what that pitcher's working on that day. I just think I take all spring
But you know
training
what?
with a grain of
Here's
salt.
the thing. I do too,
Yeah.
but here's the thing. If it was 200, we would be saying the same thing. I'm not buying it. It's spring training. Wait
Yeah.
till the season starts. I would much rather it be 400 than 200.
Sure, for a guy like Straw who has struggled, yeah, good.
He needs that
good
confidence.
For him.
Yeah, it's good
You
for
know,
his confidence.
I mean, listen, we don't need this lineup as we expected to be better. Miles Straw is last year Miles Straw was one of 3 big weak spots in the lineup.
He was.
Now he's the worst hitter in the lineup.
Offensively.
Right, offensively. Now he's, at least in theory, the worst hitter in the lineup.
Yeah.
Well, I can live with him as my worst hitter because at least forget the defense, which obviously he's excellent at. But even from an offensive standpoint, he has the ability to steal bases. He has the ability to run the bases. As opposed to like a guy with Austin Hedges who's like
brought nothing to the party.
Useless, right?
Every once in a while he'd run into one.
Right.
And that was all he brought you.
Yeah, that was it. He couldn't run the bases. He was so at least Straw, if he gets on base. I don't need Straw to be great offensively. If he can get to the point where he's like slightly below average, I'll take it.
Are we going to pick a win total for the Guardians? We're going to do that tomorrow before
on
the season
Thursday.
starts? Thursday, okay.
We have
because I think I'm going to adjust mine a little bit.
We have an entire over-under. We're going to do a ton of betting props with the Guardians,
Good, okay.
player props, and all that. I do have a question for you, Jay, on this topic, though. You pitched professionally, and you
use that term very loosely,
but
not
at
that level,
whatever.
but yeah.
You know this maybe more than most, not maybe. Why is it harder on the mental aspect for young pitchers who come up, as you and Bull mentioned, if they come up early, they get rocked, they may never find that confidence again, as opposed to a guy like, in basketball, he gets off to a rough start, but his career still can take off later. Why is it in baseball that it's harder to refine that confidence?
That's a good question, because your skill set in basketball is, obviously there's defense involved, but your skill set is what your skill set is. If you can stand in the corner and nail threes all day long, you can do that whether you're playing on a playground or whether you're playing against an NBA player, as long as you've got a lane and an open shot. In baseball, particularly as the pitcher, your skill set is only half the equation. It's the other player that you're facing skill set that determines your success. So as these guys come through the minor leagues, they're oftentimes the best guy on their team, and they're having a lot of success. And they've never been in a spot where they're just getting racked. And then they come up to the big leagues and they're seeing the best 750 hitters in the world. And now all of a sudden, they start to question their skill set if guys are starting to square the ball up and put it in play a lot. So it does have a lot to do with what the opponent is doing to what you're doing to them.
So with that in mind, and then Bull.
But I would say, before you move on, Mike, I would say also that there are some basketball players that suck early and they don't turn out to be
golfers, football
forget
players,
about them.
everything. You can
and
get
there
into
are
a mental slump.
baseball pitchers who suck early and are able to get over it.
Sure.
But some guys can get screwed up.
Christian McKenzie got absolutely hammered early in his career.
Yeah. But he turned it around. My next question to follow up on that, though, Jay, and then we'll move on to some Browns talk. But when is the right time, in your opinion, for Francona, or really any manager, to call up a young guy? Like, is there something he has to show to prove he's ready to take that step? Or in your opinion, what is it?
For me, it's stuff. I was watching guys throw bullpen in Goodyear, and there's nobody in the batter's box. I'm just looking at their stuff. And there's some guys I'm nodding my head like, oh my God, yeah, he's got command of everything. And when you're throwing a bullpen, you'll work in and out, up and down. So the one thing that a pitching coach or a manager wants to see is, are you hitting the spot they're telling you to hit? So give me a cutter low and away.
Yeah.
Are you throwing the ball there?
Yeah.
And if you're doing that consistently with 2, and particularly if you can do it with 3 pitches, you're ready.
I think also,
I don't understand. Well, if you're a batter, like I think sometimes you got to realize, if you're going to pitch, right, the only thing you can do is throw strikes and put it over the plate, right? And under certain circumstances, if you're a hitter, the hitter just makes a great, it's a great play.
Yeah, but you kind of simplify it and say if you're a pitcher, all you have to do is throw it over the plate. It's really way more than that.
Yeah, sure. It's way more than that.
You got to change speeds effectively.
Yeah.
Yes.
You got to work up. You've got to work down. You really have to work in.
Sure. And I get what you're saying.
Sometimes
the pitcher makes a great pitch and the hitter just makes a great play, or vice versa.
And guess right. And see if you agree with this.
Yeah.
In my mind,
8
out of 10 times, if you have a top-line pitcher against a top-line hitter, the top-line pitcher has the advantage.
Yeah,
he
at
wins.
least 8 out of 10.
Because they already have the advantage. If you fail 7 times out of 10 for your career, you're going to the Hall of Fame.
Yes.
So like.
Well, but think about it from this perspective, Jay. Usually, when the hitter wins that battle, it's often because the pitcher made a mistake.
Very much so.
Not because the hitter just, because how often does a great pitcher get beat on a great pitch?
I know.
That
it doesn't happen very
often.
often.
So my thing would be, if I'm a pitching coach, is, hey, look, all you got to do is hit your spots. Don't make the mistake.
Right.
And usually you're going to get them out.
It's easier said than done for a young pitcher.
You're right.
Yeah.
It is very – and I will tell you this, because in the few minor league games that I pitched, I always say that the one thing that never changes in sports is the free throw. If you think about it, the circumstances are always the same, minus the score. So there is some pressure. But pitching is pitching. It's always 60 feet, 6 inches. The box is what it is. The plate is what it is. But you feel pressure based on situations. When I was pitching in front of a full house in a minor league game, the ball got sweaty.
Yeah.
You know, everything got a little more tense, and you tend to struggle to get your command early on. I love the scenario I mentioned, the great pitcher versus great hitter. That's why I love the end of the WBC so much.
Yeah.
It was 1-2 in baseball.
That's right.
It was
That's
Mike
right.
Trout, the dominant of his time hitter, against Shohei Ohtani, and the pitcher won. Now, other famous battles, the one that comes to mind for me, Kirk Gibson versus Dennis Eckersley.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget Eckersley mouthing the words "wow."
Yeah.
After he beat him.
Of course, Rajay Davis, the great hitter, against Aroldis Chapman. By the way, last thing real quick, and then
one of the
we'll move
all-time
on.
great matchups.
Yes, it was. One other thing I would say about stuff with pitchers, I think the power pitcher, nowadays it seems like everybody's a power pitcher.
Right.
The power pitchers can often adjust to the big leagues quicker because at least you can overpower a guy.
Right.
Like where the control guy,
Yeah.
the guy
The soft thrower.
those guys take time to develop.
They do.
Greg Maddux had a 5.60 ERA in his first year in the big leagues with the Cubs. 5.60.
He's a great example of exactly what you're talking about. Maddux wasn't a hard thrower at all.
No.
Maddux today, I don't know if he would get a look.
Well, he was a little hard. He threw a little harder when he was young. Not hard. He wasn't a hard thrower.
He was never an
But-
overpowering
But
pitcher.
then he became kind of like what Kyle Hendricks is now.
Well,
just pinpoint control.
They kind of cheated for him, though.
One
a
guy.
little bit.
Well, he earned that.
Yeah, but they were doing that for everybody. For all good pitchers
when-
at that time.
when
These
guys-
balls is way out here.
I know,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
here's what that is. When guys prove over a number
right.
of years that they're hitting every single spot they're trying to hit, like the umpire can see if the catcher doesn't move his glove.
Right.
So if the catcher sets up low and out,
That's right.
and the ball is right there,
They got to call it.
that's where he wanted it to be.
The umping
and now
is
they
better
start
now.
to stretch
Oh,
the
really?
zone for those guys.
Even after the guy threw him out of the game for
Well,
not
that-
having the ball?
that was
get,
bad.
get
That
these
was
dudes up out of here. Give
We
me
have that later.
AccuTrack.
Don't worry. We'll
By
talk
By the way,
about
a name. I was just quickly looking through my baseball rosters. A name I think the Guardians should go after. An interesting pitcher, Anthony DeSclafani, veteran pitcher, was with Cincinnati for a while.
I don't know him.
He's now with the Giants, and he's not in their rotation. He's a guy who's been a starter, but the Giants have a very deep rotation.
Always been in the National League, I think.
Always
right?
been in the
'Cause
National
I
League.
haven't seen him.
I'm trying to think if he had spent 1 year. No, I don't think so. I think it's all been Cincinnati and San Francisco, if I remember correctly. And he's not in the Giants' rotation. They could use another
If they
bat.
trade for this guy, I'm going to fall out of my chair right now.
I think it's possible.
All right.
He owns a car wash in St. Louis, too.
And he's a guy, he's an interesting guy, not a star.
Right.
I don't even know what his numbers were last year, but he's a solid starting pitcher.
McNuggets has a read.
I bet you the line on the Guardians trading for Anthony DeSclafani is about
Di
33 to 1 on
Sclafani.
BetJack.
Di
The time,
Sclafani.
the
He's
time
better
is
that
now,
way.
Ohio sports
I mean,
fans.
aren't you
Sports
Italian,
betting
Mike?
is live. Download the BetJack app today so you'll be ready to go in on all the action. BetJack, it is Ohio's sportsbook. And it's time to talk a little Browns, fellas.
Yeah, guys, the question of the day is, I think obviously the two areas that the Browns mostly improved, the defensive line and the wide receiver.
Yeah.
Both of those were huge areas of need. G. Bush, which area do you think is better today than it was before free agency, the defensive line or the wide receivers?
Well, let's clarify the question first.
Okay.
Is the question which unit is more improved or which unit is
Yeah, let's
better?
go. Let's go more improved.
Okay.
Because
All right.
that changes the
Yes,
answer.
yes.
It does change the answer.
This is easy. Like, if it's most improved, it's the defensive line.
Yeah, it has to be.
It has to be. Receiver, I like the moves they make with receiver, but defensive line, you found a guy in Dalvin Tomlinson who's going to be a starter. You found another guy in the young OG who will be a starter. And now you got guys that are in the middle that are in the competition for that other defensive tackle position. Now it looks better if you move Perion Winfrey down to a third string type guy, and he's going to have to compete with Hurst. He's going to have to compete with Hill. You're going to have a lot more competition, and you have depth now. You could move Isaiah Thomas to back up Myles Garrett, or you could put him over opposite of Alex Wright. So you now have a smooth reset. And you know what Andrew Berry just basically said? He basically said in his signings, you know what, I whiffed on all these. I missed on all those. Because if he didn't miss on them, Alex Wright would have been a starter, Isaiah Thomas would have been a starter, and he would have had either Jordan Elliott, Togia, and he tried to fill the roster the right way, which is through the draft, but he just whiffed on all of them. So now he's just saying, look, let me find out if any of y'all can give me some meaningful snaps in a situation type.
You're not
thing.
even ready to give some of those guys the benefit of the doubt because it takes a little more time for those to incubate. Like that's not a position that you come in rookie year and just dominate.
Well, he felt like Jordan Elliott had had years to get right. He felt like Jordan Elliott should be a starter. Like he's a third-round pick. He's been in the system all these years.
Right.
And so and I think he felt the pressure too. A lot of people will tell you ain't no pressure. I can do what I want. Like we don't find any pressure. Everything is on the up and up. We just went through our process. That's not truthful. Because you wouldn't have brought in starters. These are guys that will start for you. You would have took them assets and put them somewhere else.
Except Hurst. You don't think Hurst is a starter?
Oh no. I think
he could be if he's healthy.
Be, really?
Hurst or Hill or you're hoping Perrion Winfrey and Jordan Elliott will probably be in the mix of those four. But all you want is one guy to make themselves available and say, "This is my job."
And we saw with the Eagles too. You rotate these guys in as much as any position group on the field.
Teams with good defensive lines have 6-7 guys rotating.
And what we saw with Philly was those guys with 71 sacks or whatever because they were always fresh.
That's right.
Their second team was good enough to come in and take a lot of snaps, resting their starters. So when you need these guys to make a play in a pivotal series in the fourth quarter, they still have something left in the tank. The Browns did not have that luxury last year because their starters weren't up to snuff.
Yes.
Now, I will say this, though. I still, if you're talking about stopping the run, this unit looks like it'll stop the run. I don't know how much pass rush you're going to get from them.
Right.
I don't know how much pass rush you're going to get from Tomlinson or Hurst or Hill. So they might have to manufacture some rush by doing some other things, but I think they.
Well, I think we're going to rush more than 4. Like last year, it was rushing 4,
right?
And that's all we're bringing. So you do have to get exotic, bring linebackers, bring corners, bring safeties, that kind of thing. But I think that's what Jim Schwartz is known for. He'll do that.
He has no problem doing that.
Guys, it's interesting when Mike sent out the rundown yesterday. From that moment until about 4 minutes ago, I was planning on agreeing with G and saying the defensive line, and I do think the defensive line has improved. And as G was talking, I'm listening to what he says, but I also, in my head, I'm going through what they got at receiver, and I thought about this. I said, on the defensive line, I've gone from a 0 at starting defensive tackle to Tomlinson, who's a good player. I'm not sure, I'm not 100% sure Clowney to Obo is an upgrade as an overall player. Obo's got upside, which Clowney no longer has.
Yeah.
But the one thing, and Clowney was a bit of a pain in the ass, especially last year, but the one thing Clowney has always excelled at is stopping the run at the defensive end position.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure where we are. The other guys the Browns have added on the defensive line are interesting lottery tickets, especially Hurst, because he was productive, but he hasn't played for 2 years, so I don't know what he is at this point. So I like the upgrade at defensive line. But the more I thought about wide receiver, now some of it's projecting, right? We're all projecting with these guys. I really like the Elijah Moore fit with the Browns.
So you think the wide receivers
I'm going
got
with
better,
wide receiver.
improved
Yes,
more
here's
than
why.
the defensive line?
Because in my mind, I was thinking, well, the Browns didn't upgrade from a 0, but then I was like, yes, they did. Because to me, David Bell and Anthony Schwartz, who last year were their 3rd and 4th receivers, those guys are 0s. Now, David Bell might not be a 0 this year, but he was a 0 last year. And Elijah Moore was, I think he can turn out to be a quality number 2 wide receiver. Yeah. Now, some of that is projecting on my part because he hasn't been productive enough. But he's played with terrible quarterbacks. And if you look at his numbers, with all those terrible quarterbacks, except for Zach Wilson, who's the worst of the bunch, his numbers with those other guys, who are still bad, but not as bad as Zach Wilson, are really impressive.
Yeah.
And I think, again, all my assumptions on the offense, fair or not, is that Deshaun Watson's going to be good again.
Right.
And if he's good again, I think the potential is Elijah Moore doubling those numbers. The touchdowns certainly more than doubling, but the other numbers doubling and even a little more beyond that. I'm expecting him to have about 1,000 yards this season. I'm expecting him to have 4 or 5 touchdowns this season.
I think 1,000's
It is a lot.
That's a big jump.
It's a big jump, but I think he's capable. The guy was a borderline first-round pick. I think he went 35th in the draft. There's tons of speed. There's a lot of talent. And he's going to play, I think, with a big-time chip on his shoulder this year after, being discarded in New York. And under the radar, we all know Marquise Goodwin is not a huge player.
Right.
But again, Marquise Goodwin for a fourth receiver,
We'll take that.
that's quality.
Yeah.
We'll
take
fourth
that.
receiver. What I can do with Marquise Goodwin, I can use him a little on special teams. I know it's not wide receiver.
You can.
He'll make a couple of big plays. He's not going to consistently make you big plays, but he'll make a couple big plays. And we know Kevin Stefanski loves that trickery that gets people frustrated sometimes. Well, Marquise Goodwin, he's had like 11 rushes in the last few years, he's a guy you can use on a trick play because he still, as you've talked about, has big-time speed even at his age.
You just said something, Bull, and I'm going to say something that's very controversial.
Ooh, I like that.
People have given up on Anthony Schwartz, and I'm not a big fan of it.
This is controversial.
This is controversial.
You've watched him.
Anthony Schwartz, I think, has a place on this team.
Wow.
Man.
And the reason why I'm going to say Anthony Schwartz has a place on this team is if you go back and watch Auburn, Anthony Schwartz wasn't catching footballs. Anthony Schwartz wasn't doing none of the above. He was a glorified special teams guy and a glorified running back. Here's the thing. Anthony Schwartz I don't even really trust him on the punch like that. That's why Jakeem Grant got him back here.
Well, but think about it this way, G. They have if we assume Jakeem Grant's definitely going to be here, and I think we all assume that he will be.
I think he will. Right?
Well, that's you add the four guys that we know are going to be here.
Where's the spot on
and
the
then
roster
Grant,
for
and
Schwartz?
they're not cutting Bell after 1 year.
No,
that's 6 receivers. Are they going to keep 7?
No,
I don't think so. If they do, then maybe Schwartz would have a chance. But
watch this.
I think they've got to move on from him.
In this new offense, right? If they're going to be vertical game and you're going to take some carries away from Nick Chubb, you still need to be a little balanced in certain things you do. And the one thing Anthony Schwartz can do is he can run the ball.
Yeah, but you know what, G? I can use Elijah Moore on those type of plays.
You can.
I can use Godwin on those type of plays.
You can.
I can use Jerome Ford. I could use, what's his name? The other young running back.
Felton.
Demetri Felton.
Felton. I could use him on those type
Here's
of plays.
The thing,
I
though,
don't need
G,
Schwartz.
I'm wondering if – so assuming that maybe someone over in Berea is thinking that, maybe they brought Marquise in as a way to see this is the last resort.
Yes.
Because here's what Marquise Goodwin is. People don't remember this. A lot of people don't know this. My
Yeah.
son reminded me of this on the phone the other day. Marquise Goodwin still has the high school United States of America long jump record. He jumped 26.11 in high school. He was at the Olympic trials in 2021.
Yeah.
So
he could still
So
scoot.
yeah, he was what, 29 then? I don't know
Yeah.
what he was. He was still amongst the best athletes in the world.
Right.
Now he didn't make the team. He had a pretty good showing, but he's still. I asked Corey, I go, did he look slower to you? He goes, no, he's not slower.
Right.
The only reason he didn't make the team was because he was training with the Bears, and they wanted him to put on weight, and that's his day job.
Right.
That's what pays the bills.
Sure.
So he even told Corey, I wasn't in jumper shape. And he wasn't. I watched him jump at Texas. I watched him jump at the Olympic trials in 2016. He was just a different built guy. He was much slighter. If he gets to where he was at his peak, which he was just 2 years ago, he's going to be just as fast as Anthony Schwartz. But he has a body of work that he can lean on.
Right, you're gonna
and
trust
Schwartz
him.
doesn't.
He's been in
so
the league
here's
a
the
decade.
thing. Maybe this signing was nothing but we're going to find out what we got in Schwartz.
Right, and you know what? He probably doesn't have any guaranteed money, Goodwin.
I doubt it.
Right,
I doubt
and
it
if
very
Anthony
seriously.
Schwartz goes out there and kills it in training camp,
then it worked.
Then you cut Godwin and you move on.
Then it worked
whatever.
because you'd much rather have a younger speedster
Yeah.
that can catch the football.
There's no point in cutting him right now unless you needed the cap space
No,
or
bring
whatever.
him to camp. Let him see what he can do in camp, particularly with Deshaun in preseason games. But what
if
we
he's
saw of him last year,
No.
man, I got to tell you, that it shocks me that you say that
He
because
plays with no confidence.
Well,
Don't you know, right?
oh, no.
they were handing the
no.
ball to him
Yeah.
just to get him some confidence.
If he's a slappy again in training camp, you
But
got to move on.
But here's where I take it. I look at it from a standpoint that your offense, one thing you can coach is speed. And I think that they need a jet motion type guy. They got Goodwin. They'll have Schwartz. I think what they'll do is they'll have that guy in that kind of role where, hey, you're not. You finally hit one.
Sorry.
Finally hit one.
Because you threw it.
I went.
You threw it, yeah.
So
There goes the shoulder.
All it takes is this. And you know, speed is intoxicating, Jay. If he catches a ball or a tunnel or bubble screen or he gets a reverse and he goes to the house in any preseason game,
right,
he's automatically on the roster.
You're right. I think so too.
You'll get intoxicated because you go, oh, God.
You see it once.
You see it once.
You know, listen, Anthony Schwartz is John Ross 2.0.
Yes.
The Browns just made the stupid mistake in the third round as opposed to the Bengals making the stupid mistake in the first round.
Right.
He's the same player.
Yeah.
He plays with no confidence. He's got great speed, but he can't use it on the field. No hands, no confidence.
Yeah.
The idea that he's going to turn it around in training camp, there's no reason not to give him the chance, but
you're going to give him the chance because you just drafted him in the third round.
But
so,
got no
it was
faith
a couple
that
of
he's
years
gonna show
ago. You
that
got to
con-
give him a
so,
chance.
yeah.
McNuggets, we have Aditi.
We do have Aditi, and our first guest of the day is brought to us, as always, by Lincoln Electric. Now hiring for great jobs. They have the most expertise in manufacturing and welding. If you're looking for a job in the electrical field, Lincoln Electric is absolutely the place to apply. Check them out if you haven't. Lincoln Electric, a great sponsor of the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show.
Love them.
And now, Aditi Kinkhabwala. What's up, Aditi?
Hi, good morning, guys. How are you?
Hi, Aditi.
So, Aditi, did you talk to Coach Harbaugh about the, we're going to get right into it. Lamar Jackson, what's going on? What's going on here? We got to get that scoop.
Do you honestly, G, think that Lamar had absolutely no clue that Harbaugh would be talking that day?
Of course.
No, it was 100%
All planned.
The Ravens put out a news release saying what time he was going to talk.
This came out of left field, and I'm like, that did not come out of left field. That was not unknown. No, but nice thought right there.
Yeah, well, we said yesterday it was planned.
We talked about this. This is the most interesting contract negotiation that I can remember in more than a dozen years of covering the NFL. Seriously. Just because of all the different parameters, just everything about it. From Lamar never having an agent, then potentially someone actually kind of negotiating on his behalf. And now even Meek Mill is trying to get into the conversation. And I don't know if that counts as negotiating on Lamar's behalf. Right? Like, how great is that, G? Did you see that?
I didn't see that. That's why we bring
Meek
you
Mill
on.
apparently told Robert Kraft that Lamar wants to go to the Patriots.
And Meek Mill is an exec.
Mill called Robert. Yes, Adam just told us. I mean, I think that that's just brilliant. All of this that's going on. And then Jimmy Haslam has to go out and defend why his team did business the way that it did business. Because let's not forget, this is not as much one business as it is 32 separate businesses. So, I mean, it's not like people are having to defend the way Daniel Snyder has done business. But in any case, I just think that the Ravens are playing it as classily as they possibly can. What else do you expect them to say? They're not going to sit here. It's not their organizational ethos to ever be undisciplined in their messaging. So you are not going to hear Steve Bisciotti or Eric DeCosta or John Harbaugh sit here and rip the player or say that the player shouldn't have done this, or even that they wish that the player didn't air the dirty laundry. And they're certainly not going to do anything to potentially burn a bridge, because the way this all plays out, Lamar Jackson may indeed have no options other than to sign that tag.
Yeah.
And then the Ravens certainly hope play for them. Although this whole Colts thing is now really fascinating, and I love that Jim Irsay is getting involved and saying, we'll pay him a lot of money. We just won't guarantee the money.
Here's what I think is happening. I do think when the news first started a month ago, I was like, okay, I'm not going to scream about collusion until we see this play itself out. But when you hear the Washington Commanders say, we're not going to go after Lamar Jackson, we're going to stick with Jacoby Brissett and Sam Howell, I mean, that's embarrassingly laughable that you wouldn't be interested if you're Washington. What I wonder is happening here, I wonder if there are a lot of owners right now in this league that are hoping that Joe Burrow and or Justin Herbert sign an extension before Lamar gets settled. And because if those extensions with those guys, especially Burrow, is not fully guaranteed, then Lamar loses. Now, Lamar can still do whatever he wants. But if Burrow signs a deal that is not fully guaranteed, I think Lamar loses a lot of leverage to push for this fully guaranteed, because if Burrow, who's way more accomplished than Jackson is, and you could argue would deserve a guaranteed contract more than any quarterback in the league outside of Patrick Mahomes, if he doesn't get his whole contract guaranteed, then I think the Watson thing becomes the exception and not the rule. And I think that's what's going to happen going forward. You buy that?
So I agree with you that I believe the Watson deal will ultimately be the exception. I've already gone on record saying that I really have a strong feeling, indication, thought that Joe Burrow would prefer a shorter term deal. Yes, maybe fully guaranteed, but not at the number and the length of Deshaun Watson's. I would caution you here, though. We keep throwing around that Lamar Jackson is demanding exactly or essentially Deshaun Watson's contract. And I will tell you this, in all my years around the Ravens, in all my relationships with the Ravens, they are unbelievably disciplined. I'll use that same phrase, unbelievably disciplined in terms of what gets out and how they feel about what gets out. And I'll tell you a story about that. Lamar, who now is taking control of his narrative and his messaging, has also not ever said, hey, this is exactly what I'm expecting, or they need to do this. He's been pretty vague about it, in fact, and he's mentioned the 3 years and the guaranteed and the this and that. So there's this noise out there that he's looking for Deshaun Watson's contract. I'm not sure that I would 100% bank on that being an established fact, that that's what he wants.
Sure.
And as for the Ravens, John Harbaugh, who I have been on the record telling you is one of my favorite coaches in the league, who if I were to suit up and play in the NFL right now, I would want to play for John Harbaugh. He didn't speak to me for a whole entire year and did not want his players speaking to me, because of things that I reported that were 100% true and that he admitted were true. He just was that angry that I had access to that information and that I had shared this information. And it's funny because this is the anniversary. It was at an owners meeting in Arizona where we finally made up, and I said, okay, this isn't, curing cancer here. If it bothers you that much, pick up the phone and say, don't share this information about Rolando McClain, or this irked me. But the reason I'm telling you this is that whatever you're hearing out there about Lamar's demands, that's not coming from the Ravens.
No,
and
let me
Lamar
ask you a
is now
question,
sitting
though,
here.
Aditi.
Go ahead.
I know you said he's been somewhat vague as to what he wants, but he did tweet 3 for 133. So we have to assume that was the offer, because his point when he tweeted that was, and I need an agent. So it was kind of let's just take for a second that that's what the Ravens offered. And to your point, I'm sure they're not happy that was out there. But 3 at 133 is 45 per. And if that's not good enough, then take it to 4 at 45 a year, which now gets you to 4 for 180. And if you were to extend that out to 5 at, again, 35, that would be 5 for 215, which is now you're in the Deshaun Watson neighborhood. If it's fully guaranteed, you're really close.
In the neighborhood. Yeah. Not the same. But again, the years, I think, are something here. Think about those years, Jay, right?
Right.
Like a team may be more willing to guarantee a shorter term deal. And this is what I told you all a few weeks ago. I can't remember, Jay, if you were on set or not, when I said this is what I really believe that Joe Burrow is going to do. And this is going to be the wave.
Yeah.
And I think because it will be more palatable to both sides. It's smart for a quarterback because, as I said then, and I'll repeat it now, those quarterback deals, they get old the minute the ink dries. Okay,
you're
the highest paid quarterback for basically 1 hour until the next guy comes along.
Yeah.
So Patrick Mahomes, that was a huge fat deal until the very next deal. And so by the time you get to year 2 or year 3, that deal is old anyway. That deal is outdated. That deal is under market. So why would you lock yourself up for that long? And a guy like Joe Burrow knows that in 3 years of guaranteed money, he can make generational, life-changing wealth. And if that's the end of it, so be it. That's the end of it. He still has generational, life-changing wealth. But 3 years from now, he's worth way more than he is if he locks himself into that deal right now, today. So it is believable to me that the Ravens would guarantee a great amount of money for a shorter term. And it is believable to me that Lamar wants more years because obviously he doesn't know that his career will extend to a second deal after this one. He sure hopes so. But again, you're making my point for me. Lamar is now starting to say more. He's starting to say, hey, this guy wasn't negotiating for me, or hey, I could have done this even without an agent or whatever. So he's never actually said, why are you paying Deshaun that, but you won't pay me that? So let's just, before we say that as stated fact, that he's looking for the same number of years and the same amount of money, I can't guarantee that that's that, but I do think that I can't guarantee that that's fact. I do think we should focus on those years there. And I do think that Irsay is pretty wily in what he's saying as well.
Aditi, like I've said it from Jump Street, this is a very decent or easy negotiation to me. If you want the guaranteed money, why not just be like, look, I'll take the 3 for 160. They'll say that's kind of high. That's kind of high. They might back him down to 155. But if you get 3 for 160, you get all that guarantee. You can say, I got a guaranteed deal. You also get a very nice chunk of change. Plus, you're back at the table. He's only 25.
Yeah.
By the time he's 28, he could be back again, and he could be looking at another 3-year deal, 4-year deal for maybe $50 million if he's injury-free.
That's exactly what we talked about a few weeks ago, and I said I've done that in my career too, where I feel like the number wasn't necessarily what I wanted. So I said, okay, let's just do 1 year and let's see what I'm worth a year from now. And I was worth a heck of a lot more a year from then. And that's just, I think that there's something smart to that. The difference, of course, is in my business, in our business, we don't have to worry as much about getting hurt, having a career ending injury. And that's something that he has to think about. But again, I think I'm fascinated. And I think the way that fan bases are responding to all of it, Browns fans going nuts over Lamar asking for a trade, like that just adds a whole other piece to the intrigue and the reason this is sort of so popcorn inducing.
Well, what's funny to me is we have I think some of these people might be the same people taking both sides of the fence, but we have some fans here who are dancing a jig that the Browns have screwed up the Ravens.
Oh, yeah.
And then there's other fans who are saying, everybody's got to stop blaming the Browns for this. Well, you can't have it both ways.
Take that.
Right.
The Watson contract, clearly, whether he's looking for every dollar that Watson wants or not, there's no doubt that Watson's contract is playing a role in the problems in this negotiation. Is that fair to say?
Playing a role. Yes, of course.
It's not the whole thing.
I think playing a role in every negotiation. In every negotiation going forward. I think the whole quarterback market was affected by that deal. Given.
Yes.
It's set the new bar.
And I don't think Jimmy Haslam, who has plenty of things to apologize for, including being a pathetically bad owner for a decade, I don't think he owes any apologies to the league or anybody else for this at all. Zero. No. And if it screws up the Ravens, that's a great thing for us.
You hinted on it, Bull, and I think you're right.
Yeah.
I think that the league is going to look at that and shake it off.
That's what they're trying to do.
Right. But now, if it was Mahomes and maybe even Burrow, and by the way, I think both of those guys are more deserving of that than Jackson is.
Sure.
So if you're going to make that bet, it's really not on a guy like Deshaun Watson, and it really shouldn't be on a guy like Lamar Jackson. It should be a guy that's taken you there. Mahomes or Burrow.
Yeah, Mahomes.
So, but I do think that the league, I don't think they got together in a room, all 32 of them, and said, hey, guys, we got to end this real quick. No more of this guaranteed nonsense. But I think it's you would call it, the gentleman's punt.
It is.
They all know what the deal is.
It's laughable that Washington would not be interested, Aditi. I mean, that is laughable.
But see, Jay is making the point, and it's exactly as I said. It's 32 separate businesses. It's not like every team does business the same way. Remember, the Cowboys took out their own merchandise and have their own licensing deals and do that their own way. I can tell you some teams own their parking lots. Yeah. Other teams don't own their stadium parking lots. What? Some team, the way that a team does business is distinct and unique to it.
Yes.
Certainly, there are certain parameters they have to follow.
Yes, but Aditi,
I think the whole collusion thing is a little silly in that sense.
I understand what you're saying, but they don't all operate in 32 vacuums because the way one operates impacts the way others do, particularly when it comes to setting the bar for the biggest, most important position in pro sports. So I hear what you're saying, and you're absolutely right. It's 32 individual businesses, but they are intertwined. It's not like they all are operating, in a vacuum of one another.
Correct. But what I'm saying to your point is I don't see that at the owners' meeting in Arizona right now, everybody's sitting in a room and they're all MFing Jimmy and D.
No, they're not.
And saying, we're never going to do this. It's not that way. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I don't think it is either. But I think collectively they're all sitting around saying, this isn't the best way to do business. And to your point of the Ravens, I look at them as one of these model franchises, much like the Steelers and the Patriots. They get things right. They have a way. They know what they want to do and how they want to do it. And you keep talking about how amazingly disciplined they are. I think their brain power got in a room and said, 3 for 133 is as close to us being uncomfortable as we're going to go. And that's probably where they are. Do you think he'll take another snap for the Ravens? What's your gut tell you?
Gosh, that one's so hard. I can argue it both ways, and it really does feel like you ask me right now and ask me again in 5 minutes, and I can go the other way. I feel like when a player wants to go, when a player feels offended, it's very hard to come back from that. Right. And even if it's cutting off your nose to spite your face, even if it's a little short-sighted. And again, I'll go back to the Le'Veon Bell situation in Pittsburgh, because I think that was somewhat very similar. Here was a player who was very clearly in the top 3 or 4 at his position, who had produced tremendously, who was playing the position differently than perhaps anybody else. Because at the time, remember, the way that he was used as a pass catcher, the way Le'Veon Bell was used as a pass catcher and a runner was a bit innovative. And he and his agent had actually tried to make that argument that why are you using the running back franchise tag number as opposed to the receiver franchise tag number? So similar to Lamar playing the position differently, there's all of that. But here's where it really resonates for me. I remember having the conversation with Le'Veon about the position that he was in Pittsburgh, meaning he had an offensive line that was set up very specifically to block for his style. If you remember, Le'Veon kind of waited behind the line of scrimmage for a hole. He didn't just go and hit the hole. He stood back there, waited for the hole to develop, and then hit it. Not every line could do it. Not every line was as in sync or coached by a guy like Mike Munchak to be able to do that. He had a wide receiver who was arguably the best wide receiver in the game, Antonio Brown, that every single defense was keyed on. Number one for every opposing defense was not Le'Veon, it was Antonio Brown. And he had a quarterback who was ostensibly a future Hall of Famer in Ben Roethlisberger. And it was very easy. In my mind, it was easy to say to Le'Veon, you're not going to necessarily find that situation anyplace else. You're not going to find that same support, that same group. You're not going to have the same offensive scheme or creation. But a player who feels he's been disrespected by a team, a player who feels that the team isn't fighting enough for him or want him enough or whatever that situation may be, sometimes you're already a little bit checked out. And just as a coda to anybody who doesn't remember, Le'Veon Bell sat and then he went to the Jets and his career was never the same.
That's right.
He didn't have the same success.
Right.
I think that I surmise, I have reason to believe, I've been told that Lamar may feel a little bit similarly. He may feel a little bit disrespected. And I think he's given us that indication in saying that he requested a trade, in putting that out there. And remember, there's another piece to that, because it's not getting filtered through an agent to Lamar.
Right.
Whatever Lamar is hearing, he is hearing directly. And however he is perceiving it is not then perhaps being framed by somebody else. And I know, Jay, you said you don't have an agent. I have an agent. Sometimes I hear something one way and I go on red alert and I take it personally, and I count on my agent to kind of calm it down and say, hey, this is part of the business, or this is commonplace in the business, or when they say this, it can also be read as this, and this. Lamar doesn't have that filter.
No,
so,
there's no buffer.
All right, Aditi, well, at least.
So when you say all of that, right now at this very moment at 11:54 a.m. on whatever day this is, I do think that Lamar is ready to move on.
Yeah,
At least
feels
the
that way.
Steelers don't have to worry about a big contract extension with a quarterback. They've got Mac Jones. They're set with him. He's going to be a scrub.
Gosh, Adam.
Kenny Pickett, Mac Jones, what's the difference? From now on, every slapdick quarterback that the home fans overrate, I'm just calling them all Mac Jones. And Kenny Pickett is in that group. Remember I said it first?
You think Mac Jones is starting for the Patriots?
As of now, who else would be starting? Unless they get Lamar.
Bailey Zappa. Zappy.
No.
I don't even know how to say. I'm not even saying his name. How embarrassing
He's
is
starting
that?
for some rock band, not for
Guitar Hero.
That's it.
Frank
All right,
Zappa Jr.
We'll see you later.
See you,
Bye,
Didi.
Yeah.
Now 25 CD.
Thank you, Aditi. Hey, guys, we have a poll result question that we asked the YouTube chat that I want to ask you guys before we pivot
I
here
like
to the
that question,
Cavs.
by the way.
Eventually, we'll get to PCC. There we go.
What's the
Thank
question?
you. Yeah, it's a whole carousel of advertisers now. We love it. Are you looking for a job with career advancement and great benefits? Well, PCC, which is fifth on our carousel, first in our hearts, is the leading manufacturer in Northeast Ohio for all airfoil things needed. All locations of PCC Airfoils in Eastlake, Menor, Wickliffe, and Minerva are hiring for all positions starting at $18 up. Plus, get full benefit packages, paid time off, and a signing bonus. You can apply at precast.com/careers to learn more. This goes back to the conversation we were having right before Aditi joined the show, and we went a little more specific than the general topic. I'll give you the YouTube chat results first, and I want each of your opinions before we pivot on to the Cavaliers and Caris Levert. Who is the more impactful acquisition in 2023 for the Browns? So just this year, who will have a bigger impact, not who's more important in totality?
Yeah.
Tomlinson or Moore? You guys touched on it in totality.
Yeah.
But give me individually.
Before we get into that specific, Mike, I realized that when G and I gave big breakdowns on wide receiver versus D-line, we never got Jay's take on that.
Yeah, well,
I think Jay should give his take first before we get.
all right. That's because Aditi was in the queue and we had to move it on, and
Yeah.
I didn't want to push her time back.
Yeah. You got to break the tie here.
Because the question, we reframed the question, and
Yeah.
it was which position group improved most.
Right.
So the biggest area of improvement has to be defensive line, because as a group, even with, and I know Clowney, you said Clowney as a run stopper, he was nothing last year. To me, he was just taking up a spot.
Right.
So if you're charting it on 0 to 100, with 100 being most production you can get and 0 being no production,
Yeah.
I would have had the defensive line at like 18 or 20. They were
Right,
awful.
but in theory, I'm not saying use what you think. You could go from 18 to 40.
So that's what I was
as
going to
opposed
explain.
to going from 50 to 100,
Well,
which would be a bigger jump.
That's
by
what I
wide
would
receiver.
explain.
Okay.
So first of all, the
Yeah.
Browns receivers now is not 100.
No, I know. I'm just using that as an example.
I would just for round numbers, I would say I would put the DL at around a 20, and I would put the wide receiver group around a 50.
Last season.
Last season.
Okay.
I mean, I thought, again, the offense wasn't the problem.
No.
And Amari Cooper had a very good season. DPJ had a good season. Njoku had one of his best seasons, still not paid, or it still wasn't the production that they're paying for.
I wasn't including Njoku in my analysis.
Yeah, I kind of.
He's a pass catcher,
you're right.
but yeah.
But I just think from where the defensive line started
Yeah.
and where the wide receivers were, I think they both got better, but maybe the wide receiver jumped to a 75. So it's an increase of 25, but I think the defensive line jumped to a 60 or so. So I think that's more of a jump from where they were.
Yeah.
Because I didn't think the wide receiving.
I would have
It
had
was bad, but it wasn't.
I would say, to me, I would go, a defensive line has gone from a 20 to a 45.
So you're not really buying in on these.
Well, I think 45 is average, or just below average.
I hope we
and
have
I think you can survive with that, from crap to below average.
Yeah.
And I still think with the draft and maybe some.
So where were the receivers and where are they
I
now?
think the receivers were a 40 and now, or a 45, and now they're a 75.
Okay, so a little bit better for the wide receiver.
Yeah, but it's close. I mean, listen, it's close.
Here's the big
close.
thing.
Yeah.
Both are discernibly better.
I would agree with that.
So I mean, that's Andrew Berry's job.
Yes.
His season starts the day the season ends.
Yeah.
And right now, if he had a win-loss record, I think he'd be about 7-3.
Absolutely.
I think he's hit on most of the things he's done. He's got a winning record,
Right.
and hopefully then that will translate into the Browns next season, turning his wins
unfortunately, it's
into
all on
real
paper
wins.
right now.
It's all on
now,
paper.
And now the two biggest things, and we'll obviously talk about this as the summer goes along. There are two different things, two huge areas. The Browns defense and what scheme they'll run. And the huge one is, what does this new Kevin Stefanski playbook look like?
Yeah.
That is because that's the whole picture.
I remember. It's funny you say that because last year, and we knew that Deshaun Watson was going to miss time. We didn't know yet he was going to miss 11 games. But I remember Jim Donovan, who always gives it straight, especially when he's not on air and we're having conversations. He tells me, he just unfiltered, boom, here it is.
Yeah.
And he doesn't call, if it's a pig, he calls it a pig. Last year, he came in after one of the days at training camp, and I said, what do you think? How they look? He's like, man, it's like watching a different team. This offense is different. They're running different schemes. The ball comes out of Watson's hands so crisp and so hard and so sharp. I don't recognize this team, and I don't recognize the plays they're running. A lot of stuff that we haven't seen before. And then the season started.
Right.
Is that?
And I'm like, wait a minute, I've seen all this before.
Is that because
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. We're going to find out.
Last thought on that before Mike does his read and we move on to the specifics.
Yeah.
Is that when you look at again, we bring these teams up all the time: Kansas City, Cincinnati, Buffalo. Their offenses, whether you're a fan or not, objectively, are tons of fun to watch.
They are because they're pinball
so
machines.
dynamic. Not every single time, but more often than not.
Yeah.
That's the goal. For the Browns offense to look like those offenses.
Yeah.
Mike?
And it is 12 o'clock, which means it's officially the lunch hour of the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. And that is brought to us every day by Colleague Racing, the official NASCAR team of Northeast Ohio. Let's get into the specifics, fellas. Real quick, 5 minutes before we move to the Cavs.
Yeah.
Moore or Tomlinson? Which one has a bigger impact this year alone in their first year as a Cleveland Brown? The YouTube chat was 72% for Tomlinson, for the record.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
Give me the exact question again, Mike, please.
Biggest impact, I think.
Bigger impact this year, not in the totality of their
contract.
What
that surprises me? Because
year.
Usually the player that scores and touches the ball, fans tend to think that they have bigger impacts. It's not always true.
But I'll tell you, as a dude that put his hand in the ground for half his life, that's true. The guys who, and I had to learn myself. See, what you guys don't understand is, as a defensive lineman, I could be in my gap. I can be there. I can knock my guy off the ball. I can do everything requisite of me to be in the backfield. But there are 5 to 7 things that can happen that nullify anything I just did. 3-step drop, quarterback threw the ball. You're not even there. Maybe they ran play action. You didn't get into your pass rush. There's no pass rush. Maybe you were in your gap. The ball cut back to a guy who got cut off, and it looks like I did nothing because that guy got beat.
Yeah.
There's times where I'm playing inside. They run a toss play. If they're running outside zone, I'm never getting there. Like, sometimes I'm going to play defensive tackle, defensive end. I'm going to be subbed out. I'm not even a 3-down player. I could play 2 downs, 1 down.
Yeah.
Maybe we're playing a team that is not going to throw the ball all that much. Hey, the Atlanta Falcons just said, you know what? Let's just run the ball 14 times against you. So contrary to popular belief, yes, I get what people are saying. Defensive tackles, you could be one of the best to ever do it. I'll give you Cortez Kennedy. Cortez Kennedy was one of the greatest defensive tackles I've ever seen play. Nobody knows who he is. You know why? Because he played for the Seattle Seahawks. They weren't very good. And you just don't notice.
Aaron Donald is like the one defensive tackle that gets the hype.
The
other guys, they don't
change his games.
But there's other guys who are really good. Nobody's Aaron Donald.
I think the Bosa's change games.
Yeah.
Watt changes games.
Right, but those guys are all outside players.
Yeah.
Right? There's the guys in the middle. Many of them make impact by just clogging up 2 or 3 offensive linemen.
Right.
And so it's not stats. Like, Tomlinson's not going to put up huge stats.
No.
Doesn't mean he's not, but you're right. Now, there's things on the offense that could, like if the quarterback makes Elijah Moore can run a perfect route, be wide open, and Watson can make a bad throw. There could be a penalty, but there's not as many things as there is with the defensive tackle, as you say, which is why I agree with you. I think Elijah Moore, I think they're both going to make a pretty good impact on this team. And Tomlinson is, through this point in their career, has been a more productive player at his position than Moore has.
Right.
But I think Tomlinson is what he is. He's a good player, and I think he's going to be a good player. Now, maybe Schwartz will get him another level up, but I think Elijah Moore's upside, we don't know how good he can be.
Right, we don't.
I think Tomlinson, at the very least, is closer to his peak than Moore is. I think most people would agree with that.
Yeah.
And I think, well, how good can Moore be? I mean, again, he was drafted 35th.
So it's a clean sweep. We all disagree with the chat.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's why I was surprised that the chat said 72%. said that they think Tomlinson will have the bigger impact.
Right. Again, I think it's close. Certainly, Moore is going to have the more, or has the potential to have the more noticeable impact.
Sure.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean necessarily.
Unless you're playing at a Myles Garrett level, you mostly play your career in anonymity. Most of those guys, it's like offensive linemen. Don't get called for holding. Don't get beat on sacks. It doesn't make you a superstar, but you rarely get noticed.
And you don't notice.
The same at that position.
And especially defensive tackles, you only really notice the guys on your team. Like, most of us don't realize how good the defensive tackles. Like, if we ask most fans, like, how good are the defensive tackles on this random team? You'd be like, I don't know. I mean, outside of Aaron Donald and maybe one or two other guys, you wouldn't know it.
I'm going to ask you guys this. I just asked Earl here, and I'm curious what you guys think. Let's say Moore goes between 700 and 1,000 yards this season.
Yeah.
That's that a big gap, 700 to 1,000.
Yeah.
I mean,
just say, but he has a very productive season as a
well,
secondary.
1,000
Just
is
say
way
700.
more productive than 700.
Uses 700.
Yeah.
We'll do 850. We'll pick
Okay,
them.
split the difference, 850.
That's a good season
and
for him.
Tomlinson helps bring the Browns' defensive rushing yards against from 150 to 110. Cuts it down 40 yards.
Oh, that's huge.
So just looking at those two statistics, which is a bigger impact on the outcome of the Browns season?
That's hard to say.
You know, because when you say he helps bring them down, once again, playing the position, I'm just going to give you the real. Stopping a run is schematic. Stopping a run is not one person. Like, stopping a run is I'm in my gap. The ball is ran. You got force players. You got players that are coming down in the box. There's guys who have cut back. All you have to do it based on the scheme. So if he's saying I dropped it, for 140 to 110, I can't necessarily say it was him. I would say it's Schwartz.
It could be Schwartz.
It's the scheme. Or it could be the fact that it's more cohesive defense.
And isn't it fair to say that Dalvin Tomlinson, at least on paper, will be the biggest concern for the other team's interior offensive line?
Oh, no question.
And thus, he could force a double team on him every play, but if the other guy doesn't make the tackle,
that's it.
It doesn't matter.
So say, for instance, like your defense, and I never liked this, the safeties, right? Grant Delpit is going to be the free player. I'm taking up 2. I got to make sure I don't get blocked and blown off, and I got to make sure the guard don't get to the linebacker.
Right.
Now, Grant Delpit is the free player. I've done all I could do.
Right.
If he misses a tackle,
it's in his hands now.
That's it.
That's it.
Yeah, so your impact was null and void.
Right.
Because the guy that you relied on to do his job after you did yours didn't do it. And that's what happened last year. You had guys doing their jobs on every play, but you had a lot of plays where there were guys that didn't do their job.
Now, Dalvin Tomlinson will probably do his job significantly better than the guy he's replacing, which will give them a better chance overall, but how consistently overall will the other guys do?
And that is why, just very quickly, they're coming out of 30 for 30 for the Baltimore Ravens. Right? That is the reason, that is the absolute reason why when you have Saragusa and Adams, immovable objects, and you have a guy like Ray Lewis, who's a Hall of Famer, who's automatically going to do his job at the highest level and do more, and you have Ed Reed at the next level,
forget it.
They're not missing that tackle.
Right.
It's just not happening. Matter of fact, they may hit you in the backfield.
It's like Warren Sapp, Simeon Rice, Derek Brooks, John Lynch, Rondé Barber.
That's right.
It's over.
It's a wrap.
You're not getting no yards.
You've got Hall of Famers at every level, and you're going to be a Hall of Fame all-time great defense.
We got a super chat from Donnie M, who is the voice of the chat, and he says, hey, fellas, we're banking on Tomlinson having some heart and not letting stuff like Atlanta happen again. So maybe that's where they're going.
You know, it's funny. Yeah, that's a great comment. Atlanta, for me, I know the busted plays killed us, and the onside kick against the Jets killed us. But the thorn in my side from last year was what Atlanta did. Because they
ran it 14 times in a row.
12 or 13 straight run plays, and all of them were for 8 yards or more. And they're doing it with guys that were on the practice squad on Tuesday of that week.
How humiliating for the defense.
It was horrific. And you're watching it. After 6, I'm screaming, what are you doing? They kept coming to the line with the same exact formation.
Same stuff.
Unbelievable.
Right, they didn't even try to trick him.
And that,
it's
to
like,
me,
you guys suck, you can't stop us.
This is a Joe Woods thing. It's on him.
He probably should have been fired then. I think we all screamed for it then.
After the game.
Yeah.
The 12 o'clock lunch hour of the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show is sponsored by Colleague Racing, the official NASCAR team of Northeast Ohio. We're going to pivot here to
Mike, I'd like to can we do something about getting me in one of those NASCARs and driving around? Well,
God, I would love that.
We'll get Matt in here next time. I'm going to see him on opening day for the Guardians home opener, so I will talk to Matt
Ain't it a height?
That would be
Earl. Ain't it a height and weight requirement?
Yeah,
there is. Yeah. I was going to say, you got your own mic, Earl, now.
It's funny. The other day, my wife hasn't driven in a week. So I went, the other day I just got in her car just to drive it. So it's, you don't want to let the car sit for that. Yeah. And for whatever reason, I decided I didn't want to move her seat because she's got a spot. Although I don't know that she's probably not going to be driving anytime soon, but I just didn't want to move her seat. So I squeezed my ass into and the steering wheel was literally, bottom of it was on my belly.
Man.
You could have moved it back when you were done.
I know, but I don't know. I just didn't want to. And I just took it around the corner.
Right.
But I'm like,
yeah.
My wife.
Hey, to begin with,
yeah.
Now IndyCar's even worse. NASCAR isn't.
Yeah.
NASCAR, there's less restrictions.
Yeah.
But I've sat in both. The IndyCar, I'm not kidding you, and I'm long-legged, but you're like this.
Mike's gonna fight.
You're like this. I mean, I don't even know how they do it.
I don't know. By the way,
Mike's the perfect size for an IndyCar driver.
Honestly, I may be, older and not in the best shape, but you wouldn't last against me in a fight. Let's be honest. Because once I got my hands on you, you're finished.
That's assuming you can touch me, though, and I'm not sure you ever
Hey,
can
listen,
catch me.
the last skinny guy who thought he could beat me in a fight, Greg Cohen. Shout out to Greg. He's now the sports information director of the CUNY Schools System. Greg
I
Cohen,
kicked his ass. Shout out to Greg.
Greg Cohen,
victory.
he made a huge mistake. We were playing basketball 3-on-3 in the schoolyard.
Made a mistake.
Okay, he spit on me.
Oh, you better beat his ass for
I
that.
went absolutely bananas. The other 4 guys playing all tried to hold me back. I pulled out of all of them. He then taunted me because he was much faster than me. He was running backwards doing like na-na-na-na-na-na, that nonsense. We're like 18 years old. He ran into a metal garbage can in the park, which is what they have in New York schoolyards and in Parma. Did you say Parma?
No, I said karma.
Oh, karma. He fell.
Also have
I
Parma.
picked him up. I punched him right in the gut, and then I picked him up and I was going to pile drive him on the concrete. And thank God my friends broke it up because I probably would have killed him and been in jail.
Yeah,
this is a true story.
Well,
I was so angry.
Well, the spitting on you is like.
Yeah, no, that's actually deserved.
That's
That's
the
inhuman.
most disrespectful
inhuman.
thing.
Remember when people were spitting on people during COVID?
Yeah.
Hold on.
What's
Yeah, no.
wrong with us? What's wrong with us?
I got to cut you off. The fighting comment came because I just got in Bull's ear
Yes.
because we got to get this Caris Levert
All
segment
right, here we
in.
Let's
go.
get the Caris.
It's been on the rundown for a while. I'm going to set it up with the numbers. And Levert has been a changed man over the last
What's
month
gotten
in
into
particular.
him?
It's been unbelievable. Steve, take the graphic full. Let's just look at his splits from March versus February. He was horrendous in February, 9 games. In March, he's been tremendous, exactly what the Cavs had hoped for in a sixth man in 12 games now.
You're missing an important stat there, which is important to this conversation, and that's how many minutes per game.
About the same.
What's that?
Almost exactly the same.
Really?
Yes, I will get you the
Wow.
exact numbers, but it was not staggeringly different.
Well,
I'll pull it up as we speak.
Close,
Well, now, was that picture there on the left where he's got Rose, was that taken during the February and earlier part, and then on the right where he's letting it grow out, a recent photo?
I will double check on the
Maybe
dates
it's the
on those,
hairstyle.
but He has been a different man, exactly what the Cavs have needed.
God, he's
for the
been
record,
way
Bull,
better.
Month-to-month minutes, he is playing 29.5 minutes in March and 27.3 minutes. So,
All right, so about 2
minute and a
minutes
half
more per
difference.
game, but that
Essentially the same.
is that 3 point. I feel like you guys tell me what you think, especially Mikey as a shooter here. I don't think that 3-point percentage is sustainable at all.
It's not.
Right?
No.
But shooting is a lot of confidence.
But can
And
he
when
split
you
the
get hot,
difference at least?
what do you say?
Split the difference. He could live with that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's
if he's shooting
mid-30s.
if he's shooting 33%, 34%.
Yeah, he's useless at 22%.
For the season, he's 38%, by the way.
Yeah, shoot 38.
Okay, so
yeah.
to the question, if he's for the season at 38%, he was 21%.
We'll take that.
Yeah,
means
that is sustainable then.
I mean, he been hitting for the most part. He just had a bad month. If you look at it that way, if he hit shooting 38, he shot 21 during February. That means his averages was crazy. The other months.
Guys, I don't know.
Yeah.
I knew he had been better just by the eye test. I didn't look at the numbers. And I've asked myself, what the hell's gotten into him? I don't know if JB said, look, we're looking for a guy that you currently haven't been.
Yeah.
And it lit a fire. I have no idea. But whatever he's doing, if we get that Levert in the playoffs, and that's a big if,
Yeah.
none of us say we trust him because he's been Jekyll and Hyde.
Yeah.
But if we get that guy, we'll give anybody a run.
You know, I ripped Okoro the other day because he's been Jekyll and Hyde.
Yeah.
But Caris Levert is a higher level Jekyll and Hyde
No question.
than Isaac Okoro,
Yeah.
right? Caris Levert has shown you at times in his career is borderline all-star level too far? Am I going too far to say he's played borderline all-star at times?
At times, he's played borderline all-star.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, like, I wonder, obviously in sports, you guys know this better than I do. A lot of it is confidence, how you feeling about yourself, right?
Right.
I wonder, you said to JB, talk to him about this. Wonder if JB said, hey, listen, when we traded for you, you were playing, where the hell was he? I can't remember. Indiana?
Indiana.
Yeah, Indiana.
Right?
Indiana.
He was playing great in Indiana.
He was.
I wonder if he said, where's that guy? We need Indiana. Forget the other guys on this team.
Yeah.
Don't try to fit in. Do your thing and play like you
I'd
can.
love to know if he challenged him.
You know, it feels like maybe that happened. Maybe
Yeah.
we're just. I don't know.
Listen,
G, real quick before you go, do you want his shooting splits by month? Because it does show a crazy roller coaster of inconsistency.
Yeah, let's hear him.
In October, 48.5%. November, 31. December, 31. January, 48. February, 21. March, 46.
Wow.
Wow, a
Pre-All-Star
21
break.
sandwiched by 48s?
Pre-All-Star break, 37%. Post-All-Star break, much smaller sample size, only 15, but he's shooting 44% since then.
So his career, his 3-point field goal percentage for the season is 38, and yet in any one month he's never been. He's been at least 7% higher or lower than that every month.
Crazy.
This is what I know about scores in the NBA, right? So, like, if you play against, like, there's a lot of my guys either play overseas or when I was playing pickup games, they used to, if you played in high school, they had these pickup games and you come back from college and hoop a little bit. And the guys that played in pros that are top-notch scorers, like, they come to those pickup games and they just don't miss. Like, it really make you like, bro, this dude, you play in Iceland and you don't miss? They're like, you play in New Zealand and you don't miss? And the NBA dudes, they just.
The worst NBA player will make every shot in a game like that.
But what people don't realize is, let's not forget, Caris Levert is a guy who's got 50 multiple times in this league. He got 50 back in Brooklyn. He's put up some 40 plus. He got 50 when he played for the Cavs. The thing about Caris Levert is figuring out a role, right? And I like what you said there. Like, somebody had to tell him, or maybe it just clicked for him. The Cavs ain't going to get nowhere by y'all just watching Donovan Mitchell.
Right.
Because think about it. Donovan Mitchell is so good that I think at parts of this season, everybody took turns watching.
Yeah.
Darius Garland was like, hey, Darius Garland wouldn't even dribble for a while. I'm like, bro, they taking the ball from you at point guard. What you doing? Evan Mobley would take Evan Mobley just send picks. I'm like, no, that is not what you're supposed to be doing. Remember? We was like, what's wrong with Evan Mobley? He looking shaky out here. Now he's finding his role. And Caris Levert is a guy coming off the bench. You need instant offense. Jetty, you coming off the bench. We need energy. Okoro and Stevenson, here's what we're going to tell y'all to do. Play defense and sit in that little corner right there and wait for the ball.
Right.
And hit maybe 1 out of 3, 2 out of 4 if you have a good day. When you know your role, you hit the ground running.
Yeah, I give JB a lot of credit because now we also should point out the schedule's been much easier. And, you know, we've said the Cavs are proven that they can beat the below 500 teams on a regular basis at a very high rate. It's the losing record against teams that have winning records that jumps out at you.
Yeah, sure.
Because those are the teams you're going to see in the playoffs. Now, all that being said, you can only beat and play who's on your schedule.
Right. That's right.
So, but just the way they're trending into these playoffs, I think JB gets credit.
Yeah.
Last year, after the break, they limped, they sputtered, they ran out of gas.
Yeah.
That was it.
Right now, I feel good about them winning in the first round. Like,
I do too.
The second round's gravy.
Right.
If they play a competitive series, like a really competitive series with Milwaukee or Boston, to me, I'm not killing them for that.
No, because it's a launching pad the next year. They got 5 or 6 games more experience against the elite
That's
teams.
right. But they have to win that first round series. And right now, as you said, and I agree 100%, at the end of last year, you had no confidence in this team.
No.
Right now, remember, after the All-Star break, they had scuffled a little bit.
They did, and we thought, here we go again.
Here we go again.
It
But
felt
now
like
Now they're going on the upswing, and I think we're all feeling good about them.
And I think one of the reasons it helped him out a little bit too, JB closed he tightened that rotation up.
Yeah.
It feels like a playoff. Not quite like a playoff rotation, but it's getting a lot closer to the playoff rotation.
You know who's going to play. They're going to go with Lamar, Okoro, Levert, and Jetty, right? And if Jetty ain't bringing them nothing, like, we'll sit him down, bring Lamar in for some toughness. If Okoro can't hit it, if Lamar ain't really hitting the shot, we'll bring in the court. So now everybody know what they're going to do. And I'm going to be honest with you. They played a little bit different since Kevin Love's not been here. They've been playing a little more like, I'm going to get the minutes. Because here's the thing. When you got a veteran and you got a guy that's talking about he's won a championship, he knows what it is, they made that move because they don't want people looking over their shoulder.
That's an interesting point, G. Do you think that Love's absence has anything to do with Levert's emergence?
I do. Because now it's like, when you're an elder statesman, right? You remember what we keep saying. LeBron this, LeBron's Cavs, since the LeBron. Like, they in there hearing these old LeBron, Kyrie stories.
Yeah. Like, that's over now.
That's over.
Yeah. You don't want to hear it.
This is all new. And it's almost giving them confidence to be like, when they didn't make a trade at the deadline, they almost said, we got what we need right here.
Right.
Don't look for nothing else.
I wonder, guys, like, Levert's been a starter for a lot of his career, right? And now he's a bench player. And sometimes players are sensitive about that, right?
Yeah,
They'll be like, why am I not starting? You know, and maybe he's finally embraced this, like, hey, maybe I'll become the next great sixth man in the league.
That's it.
Well,
Nothing
with
wrong
numbers
with that.
like that, he is.
Yeah.
And maybe he's embraced that. But I still think, like, I want to see Levert on the floor at the end of games in the playoffs.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind that either.
I think he should be on the floor. I don't know if he will be, Mikey. I don't know what you think about that, but I want to see him on
I think
there.
it depends on matchups. I think the one thing with Levert that he's bought into lately is, regardless of how well he's shooting from three, he's best with the ball in his hands. He's a facilitator and a creator.
Right.
And it's hard to play off guys like Mitchell and Garland, who are also guys who need the ball. And sometimes when you have three guys who need the ball, I know it's a stupid cliche, but there is only one ball. Not everyone gets enough touches. So when Levert comes in with the second unit now with guys like Jetty, who plays off ball, doesn't need the ball to get open. I see Jason Lloyd hopping in. We'll get to Jason in a second. Lamar Stevens, not a guy who creates his own offense. The two bigs they play, Allen Mobley, not guys who, for the majority, are creating. He becomes that number one option as a facilitator and playmaker, even if he's not scoring 20 points.
Right.
He's running the offense more, which I think has unlocked the ability for him to feel more comfortable in the offense. And when you feel more comfortable, you don't think, you just play. His shooting percentages are going up. That's what I think's really helped him.
You need that guy in the playoffs, too.
Yeah.
You do need
absolutely need that guy in the playoffs. Everything is matchup dependent in the playoffs.
I just think, though, at the end of games in the playoffs, I can't have a player on the floor that can't score. And so that's why I want Levert in there.
Unless he's doing something like, obviously this is an extreme, but if Dennis Rodman, if you're in a game like...
Dennis Rodman,
So what I'm saying is you got to bring something at an elite level to the party.
And that's why
you can't score the ball.
I don't really want Lamar Stevens or Okoro. Like, I could have Ricky Rubio, at the end of
because
games.
he does things.
Yeah, but
it's gonna be very interesting to see. I'm waiting to see what JB is doing. Because if they get in the second round, it's like, okay, what are you doing with Giannis? You can at least, I almost want to see Boston. Give me Boston.
Well, if you get to the 3 seed,
if I can see Boston in the matchup, I feel good about that because I'm going to just tell you, I give Tatum his credit. But Jaylen Brown, I'm not ready to concede to your dominance as a two-guard in this league.
Boy, these teams match up really well.
And the Cavs have really struggled against that elite big guy.
They have, And Milwauke's had an easier time with the Cavs.
Right.
Certainly the Celtics are,
and Embiid.
1 and 3
the Cavs haven't dealt with Embiid very well.
They have nothing for him.
So as good as the Celtics are, they may be the best team.
We match up better with them, perhaps.
Even though in the end, I think you're going to pick the Celtics to win that series.
Yeah.
But I think the Cavs would have a slightly better chance. I think we all agree.
I agree with that.
Boston.
Go ahead, Mike.
We're going to get to Jason Lloyd with a palm tree behind him in a second. But first, I want to let you guys know about the Great Lakes Collectors Convention coming up next month, which UCSS will be a part of. The Great Lakes Collectors Convention is presented by Greeny Sports Card, and it is taking over the Field House in Independence, Ohio on April 14th through the 16th, where the passions of sports fans, collectors, and sports talk enthusiasts collide. 50,000 square feet of ball card bliss, hundreds of display tables, card shop live theater with interactive appearances from the region's most notable sports media members, including a couple of the UCSS guys. Great cards, great location, great show. Tickets are on sale at greeniesportscards.com. We'll also be giving away some tickets. They are working on finalizing the giveaway upstairs. As soon as that is available, information-wise, we'll let you know. And Bull, me, you, G, and Jay are all going to be out there in April.
That's right. Jay, when are you going? We don't know your schedule.
I'm not sure yet. I don't know. That's the weekend my boat goes in the water, and I don't know exactly which of the days it goes in yet. So I'm up in the air.
Yeah.
I want to get some cards graded. I think they're going to have some.
This is really cool. Kids will have fun at this, too. It's going to be great. G, Mike, and I are all going to be there on Sunday. We're going to be part of a panel with our G and I have a mutual friend, Jonathan Peterlin, who Mike will like too.
Right.
And he'll get to know him. A lot of my old colleagues from the fan will be there as well. Your old colleague, Andy Baskin's going to be there. Right. Darryl Ryder, Jonathan Peterlin, who mentioned. I think Nick Wilson, who took over my spot, will be there as well. We can actually talk about it. I'm like, don't let them talk about me.
It's an all-star game. This is like the whole city there.
Ken Carmen will be there. Some of the guys from ESPN Cleveland will be there. Zach Meisel. Some other. It's going to be a great
Jason's
event.
Going to be there too, to be honest.
What's that?
I think Jason Lloyd will be there too.
Well,
Jason is going to be there. I thought he was on the fence. Jason,
I don't know.
You going to be there?
You going, Jason Lloyd?
I thought he was too big time for that.
No, it depends. That's my kid's spring break, and I don't know what we're doing.
Okay.
But if we're home, I'll come. If we're home, I don't know if we're going to be in town or not. I never know.
Hey, man, I don't like that.
Spring break is 2 weeks away. You don't know what your plans are already? What's happening here?
I mean, I just go where I'm told. We're not doing a big elaborate trip, but sometimes she tries to do short little. Sometimes my wife tries to do short little getaways.
Yeah.
Well, so I don't know where we're going to be.
I'm sorry. Don't ever have these palm trees looking at me right there like that.
I
man.
need to see
That's
that.
disrespectful.
That warms my soul. I need that.
By the way, so Jason recommended a guy named Mike to me, who's like a fix-it guy, does all this work in the house.
Yeah.
And Mike,
I got a guy.
Mike's a great guy. I met him. He came to my house a couple of weeks ago. We went through all the things I wanted him to do in my house. And then this morning, he came and started working. My wife just texted me, this is the best day ever, because he put up these new shades for her.
Oh, wow.
That she is super excited about.
Nice. Very
all right?
good.
So, and I said to him, yeah, Jason's out of town. He goes, and he says to me, yeah, that figures.
You're back in Arizona. Tell us why.
NFL owners meetings. I might as well just forward my mail and move out here as much as I've been out here the last couple of weeks. So we talked to Andrew Berry on Sunday. We had Kevin at the coach's breakfast yesterday morning. DeHaslam spoke to us last night before the big swanky dinner, and I can tell you there are a lot of hungover NFC head coaches at the breakfast this morning, because I will not use names, but these boys like to get after it. And the amount of alcohol consumed and the coaches that were staggering around here last night, this is a really swanky. I will call out the Seahawks GM. I was joking with you guys. John Schneider was wearing flip-flops at this.
Yeah.
I'm like, come on, man. What are you doing wearing flip-flops at
Not
this
appropriate. Yeah, not.
There's a 10-piece orchestra playing in the background. Like, it's a really big deal. This swanky little soiree that they invite us peasants to is really this classy event, and then you got him walking around in flip-flops. You got head coaches exchanging blazers last night. Like, again, I'm not going to use names, but one was much larger than the other one, and they thought it was funny to see what they would look like in each other's jackets.
That guy in a little.
So they're swapping coats, and it was hilarious to see how just annihilated some of these, like to see them on the sidelines, and how proper they are, and then to see them staggering around here like a bunch of frat guys. It's pretty funny. It is like that every year.
You're wearing sunglasses this morning, though, and drinking coffee.
That's the sun. I'm totally sober. The sun is blinding me. It's so bright here.
I understand that.
Hey, Jason, what's the scuttlebutt there about Lamar Jackson this morning?
Well, I mean, yesterday was the biggie, and the timing on it was just unbelievable. It was like he had someone in the room who said, okay, John just entered the room. Okay, he's pulling out his chair. Send it now. Because Lamar dropped that trade thing as John was taking his seat. It was unbelievable. And I was talking to people who were like, oh, poor John. Like, it was an ambush.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
apparently the Ravens put out a news release that said what time he was going to be speaking. And so it was public knowledge, and Lamar knew, and I'm sure he timed it perfectly for when he walked in the room. I think, he hit send at the time that John was scheduled to take the podium.
Yeah, all the coaches speak at the same. It's 7:45 to 8:15 in the morning is the coaches' breakfast. Right. Yesterday was AFC. Morning was NFC. we asked Jimmy about it, and, the Browns are pretty unapologetic about it. And, I asked Jimmy yesterday, do you feel like this, when you gave the contract, did you feel like it was groundbreaking? Or did you feel like this is a historic moment? And he said, no, we just did what was best for our franchise. And that's the line that they're sticking to. I understand it. I don't blame them. It's not their job to worry about Baltimore or Cincinnati or anybody else. They have to do what's best for them. And we don't have to relitigate all the reasons why that contract was so controversial at the time. But, they did what they thought was in the best interest of their organization. And say what you want about Jimmy, but he'll do whatever it takes to win. And that contract is proof of that.
Well, he screws it up most of the time, but yes.
He's not afraid to make the big
but
move.
He's not, and he shouldn't be. We've talked about this before. There's no need he has no reason to apologize. It's silly of him to say he didn't think it was a groundbreaking contract. It was obviously a groundbreaking contract. But the idea that he would have to apologize for it to me is laughable.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking to some people yesterday around the league who were like, Baltimore's had plenty of time. They didn't have to be in this position. They basically, whoever gets there first gets the best deal. And the Josh Allen deal, when it was signed, everyone was like, oh my God, look at this money. This is outrageous. And now you look at it today and you're like, yeah, all right, not that big of a deal.
Right.
And you sort of want to be first, because the longer you wait, the more expensive it's going to get. I said before, I think he's played his last snap for Baltimore. I don't know how this ends. I don't think it'll be till after the draft. Some of these teams, the Colts are a good example. They got, the fourth pick? They're not going to give up the fourth pick for Lamar. But after the draft, if they sign him to an offer sheet and they work out the terms of the trade and it's 2 1s or whatever, you're a little bit more comfortable giving up that pick next year if it's, if you think it's going to be 15, 16, 17, or maybe even into the 20s, rather than giving up the number 4 pick. So I think this is going to stretch. There's not going to be a conclusion to this Lamar thing anytime soon. I think it'll extend beyond the draft. But it's fascinating to watch, man, from afar. It's fascinating.
High drama. Do you think there's a chance he doesn't play?
I was just about to ask that.
That actually was discussed last night at that thing, and we were just sort of few of us were talking about that. I think that would be a massive mistake.
I agree with you.
Massive mistake.
I agree.
If he sits out the year.
But
I just think that's career suicide.
Yeah. For a quarterback,
I don't agree it's career suicide. I think I think it's a mistake, but I think career suicide is too strong.
I mean, who's the only other player that's ever done that? Le'Veon Bell? And he was completely irrelevant. Now, it's a different position. But I mean, sitting out over a contract dispute, Le'Veon Bell is the only one that I could come up with.
Right, but Le'Veon Bell was a running back, Jason. I mean, to me, it's a big difference.
No, I know.
Yeah.
But he was at the prime of his career, at the peak of his career, and then he sat out that year, and he was never the same player after that.
Hey, Jim,
I just think it would be a disaster.
I'm wondering if you had
I'm
any
sweating here. It's so
conversations.
hot.
Yeah, well, listen, it's understandable.
Tough life.
We're sweating in here, too. I'm wondering if you had any conversations with Jimmy about last year. We were talking earlier about that Falcons game where everybody watching at home is watching Atlanta do the same thing play after play with the same results. Bull said it. We talked about it at the time. How was Joe Woods not fired after that game? Was there any thoughts by Jimmy on maybe moving on from either a coordinator or doing anything during the season to try to stop the bleeding?
Well, I asked him if he thought if he was disappointed with how last year went and if he ever considered making any changes. Mikey, is that one of the – I don't remember now.
Yes,
that one
it
of the
is,
clips that we had that we
It is. You want to play it, Jason?
All right. Well, yeah, let's go ahead and play that. This is from Jimmy and D. Haslam's availability yesterday with us.
Were you disappointed at all with how last season went and how it finished, and did you ever consider making changes to the top positions?
No consideration at all in making. I assume you're talking about with like Andrew or Kevin. No consideration there. We were all disappointed. None of us thought we'd be 7-10, even with Jacoby or playing 11 games, Deshaun missing 11 games, however you want to say it. We were all disappointed. Very disappointed. Like I said, the desire to win in that building, whether it's ownership, I'm just repeating myself on personnel, coaches, is extremely high. We've got high standards, so we expect to do better.
Well, we couldn't hear the beginning of that because Mike was yammering in our ear there, Jason. I think he said that he never considered firing anybody during the season. Is that correct?
No, never considered any changes at the top to Andrew or Kevin. And then we went on and asked him, I don't think we have this one, but I said, basically, there's always pressure to win? And he said, yes, of course. I said, is there even more pressure, basically? And, are these guys in trouble if you don't get off to a quick start? He wouldn't necessarily go there. He did say there's a sense of urgency. He stopped short of putting any sort of ultimatum on, playoffs or else. But, he also said it's too early to start talking about contract extensions. So I think everybody involved, I think they have 2 years left on their deals. I think. I'd have to go back and look, but I think Barry and Kevin both have 2 years left. And he said it's too early to start talking about that. Well, yes and no. It is a little bit early now, but really after this year is when you start having those conversations, because you don't want lame duck guys. So, listen, I think we're on track with what we've said all along, that this is a big year. This is an important year. There's a lot at stake this year. And yeah, I think, I know G's been on the 6 games thing. I don't know if there's a magic number. I think it's more by feel of what you see. But if there's not drastic improvement, I think all these guys know it's at stake. And I think that they know, if they do get off to a poor start, if they are not performing to the level that they feel like they've retooled the offense. They've added so much speed to this offense just in the last couple of weeks. And they've given Deshaun more of their type of receivers that he needs to go and to make this thing work. So they feel like they've put everything in place. Now they have to go out and do it.
Jason, I think you were the first one to say it, kind of reiterating by talking to Kevin Stefanski. You believe this offense is going to be night and day. You believe it's going to be completely different from what we've seen in running the ball and pounding and doing those things. Is this going to be something when fans open up camp, they're going to say, wow, I've never seen the Browns do something like this?
Yeah, I think you could. And, Kevin sort of reiterated yesterday where he's like, plays are plays. And we can draw up a million plays. It's what he feels comfortable with. It's what Deshaun feels comfortable running is what we're going to go with. And, I just think last year, and we talked about it on the show before, it's so complicated when you first of all, you don't know how many games you have Jacoby for. And this stretched on longer last year than anyone in the organization thought it would in terms of just having clarity to the whole thing. And I think, and I asked Kevin, and Kevin didn't really go there. I said, how much was last year complicated or compromised by the uncertainty? And he said, it's no different than if you have an injury at the court. Like, there's always injuries in the NFL. It's no different if your quarterback gets hurt. But the difference here was you're trying to install a new system for a guy who hadn't taken a snap yet. And yet you were trying to balance the playbook for Jacoby versus Deshaun, and they're two very different quarterbacks in terms of what they can do and how they have success. So I just don't think it left enough time to try and turn the whole thing over just in those last 6 weeks. I do think they tried to tinker with some things in training camp last year, but they were also trying to get Jacoby ready to play. And just the uncertainty of not knowing how many games it was going to be. All that's gone. That's no longer an excuse. They know they've got Deshaun. Jimmy said it yesterday, barring injury, provided he stays healthy, they've got Deshaun Watson for 17 games this year. And no one's concerned. He does still have some legal things outstanding. No one really wanted to talk about those. No one thought it was going to really impact what he's doing. They expect him to be a full participant when he's needed in Berea. and they're going to, they're leaving from here and they're going on vacation. Kevin's family is here and they're going to Hawaii from this. So everything's going to shut down after this is over. Guys are going to decompress a little bit, take a bit of a breath, reconvene, start, really digging in on the draft. And, Deshaun has got guys in Houston he's throwing to either last week or this coming week. I don't remember now which one it is. So they're starting to build this thing up and ramp this thing and put it together. And they'll put their heads together and they'll come up with the plays and the system that they think works best.
Jason, something we've talked about.
But I do think it'll be significantly different.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's all right. Something we've talked about recently is Jimmy's rather large purchase of another sports team. And I know you asked him about this specifically. You want to set up the clip?
Yeah, obviously buying the Bucks. And he said it's not finalized yet. He couldn't really talk about it. And then he proceeded to talk about it anyway because Jimmy just can't help himself.
That's Jimmy.
So here's the clip on Jimmy buying the Milwaukee Bucks.
People want to know how your branching out will affect ownership of the Browns.
Zero.
Even though you're inheriting a governorship role of that team?
Well, If we're approved, Wes would be the governor first, so we have some time there.
Will he finish out that term?
We're working through those details now, but this is not going to be if you look at that team, they're performing pretty well, right? So we're going to keep our head down, ask a lot of questions, and try to learn, right?
Well, kind of along those lines, the Cavs-Bucks playoff series
would be awkward.
Have you had that discussion, and what are your thoughts on that? But it would be awkward.
It would be awkward.
Might have to sit in the suite for that one.
Hey man, that rich old white guy laugh is crazy. Yeah, I just bought the whole southern hemisphere, which you didn't know. I own everything below the equator, including Antarctica.
Now I have another business that I will get away from not paying taxes for.
Well, we talked about it on the show before, and the Bucks need Jimmy's checkbook. They're trying to keep this thing together, and Mark Lazary, the owner who Jimmy's buying out his shares, doesn't have the money that Jimmy has. And man, we need to update that video. That's still last year's video. We don't have any new video of him walking through
unless you take
I should have pulled out my phone.
KYC didn't send a.
We need a video of him not looking like he's about to take a crap. I mean, that's what we need.
We talked about the fact that the Bucks need his checkbook to keep Chris Middleton and Giannis and Brook Lopez and keep this group together, and that's really his role in this. But I'll cut him a little bit of slack. It is kind of awkward that the Bucks and Cavs are going to be rivals for the next few years. But I guess what I would say is that won't last forever, and these things are hard to find. Like, these teams don't become available very often. And you have to sort of take it. If you want to buy a team, you have to take advantage of it when it's there.
Right.
And this is the opportunity that presented itself. And I asked him about the Suns because the Suns were available, and he could have bought them outright. And they're a team at the top of the West right now. They got Kevin Durant, a superstar. They didn't have Durant when the team was sold.
No, he wasn't on the
roster.
But
it was still another NBA team that come up, and he wouldn't have to share ownership duties like he does now with the Edens family. He would have had outright control. And Jimmy said it was too far. Like, they like the fact. I didn't realize how much they're here, because I asked him, like, how often are you in Cleveland? And they said a lot. He said quite a bit, and I said half the year, and they said at least. And I guess I didn't realize that they are in Cleveland as much as they are. Now maybe that's the football season. Maybe they come in July and stay through December. I don't know, but they're here. I kind of thought maybe they were in and out more, and they made it sound like they stay here more than I thought originally. And they like the fact that they've got the crew in Columbus, obviously the Browns here, and now the Bucks in Milwaukee's a short flight away from their home base of Tennessee, and Phoenix was just too far away. So that's geographically like the Bucks situation.
Tough life, Dave.
Jay, tough life.
Yeah, I know, right?
On the business of the owners' meetings, I know there's a lot on the agenda. I read yesterday that the Commander sale will not be voted on here. It's going to probably happen in May when they get together in Minneapolis. But one of the things that I found very interesting is they're going to vote on whether or not to flex Thursday night games from week 14 through week 17. And I got to tell you, based on what we saw happen last year with Tua and how much the players have already said they hate playing on the short week, now you throw in the possibility that if you're a good team and you're playing meaningful games, you're going to be likely to be flexed into one of those Thursday night games, weeks 14, 15, 16, and 17. Do you think this is going to pass? And if it does, I can't imagine the players are going to be happy about that.
I think it will pass because the league always gets what it wants. And, health be damned and what's right and what's wrong be damned. We just saw that with Jim Trotter and the crap that went on with Jim Trotter. Because you know what? They know you're going to watch. So they can do whatever they want because you're still going to watch, you're still going to go to the games, you're still going to spend your money, and they don't care. And the players, like I've had players for years tell me that they hate how much they hate Thursday night games, and not necessarily that, but all the changes that they wanted in the next CBA, in the next bargaining session, and then they just roll over every time anyway. So, So I fully expect this deal to pass. If that's what the league wants, the league's going to get it.
There'll be 18 games too, Jason.
We're
going to 18 games.
Yeah,
That's going to happen.
That's definitely happening down the road.
There's no doubt.
Any other talk on rules changes? Anything big that might come out of these meetings?
The 4th and 15 instead of the onside kick? We doing that?
The push in the back at the 4th and 1.
Yeah, the Bush push that's now legal.
Yeah, honestly, I haven't kept up with that. I've been chasing other stuff while I was out here. I know we talked to Kevin yesterday briefly about the idea of touchbacks after punts going to the 25 rather than the 20 in an effort for less punting and more going for it, which, as we know, Kevin doesn't need any motivation there. He loves going for it on fourth down. And I think that, I'm not a, we've talked about that at length, and there were a few last year that I didn't like, but by and large I don't mind it. But they are trying to tweak some rules to sort of do away with more punting and kickoffs and more going for it and less collisions and more player safety. But I don't know how much I actually believe they care about player safety.
Hey, Jason, last thing from me, and then Mikey has something before we leave you to do whatever frolicking you're going to do out there. Your thought? I don't know if you heard I'm sure you heard the update, but just in case you didn't, it comes out. Tristan McKenzie shut down for 2 weeks at least, and he could miss up to 8 weeks. Obviously, this is huge. The guy's supposed to pitch the second game of the year. How big a deal in your mind, and what do you think they'll do to replace him in the rotation?
I think it'll be Hunter Gaddis. We should probably have an answer on that soon, I would think. Tito's probably getting ready to meet with the media. If he hasn't already, it should be, 9:45? It should be right around now that he's or if he hasn't done it already. Listen, we talked about it on the show before where I felt like their biggest weakness might be in their starting pitching. And these guys have not had a good spring. I know people don't want to talk about it. You don't want to make don't want to make a big deal about spring numbers, and I get it. And Bieber's had a fantastic camp. He looks terrific. But when I was out there, I don't remember now the exact number, but the rest of the starters had an ERA around 7. And now McKenzie's hurt. And Tito said, as long as you have a track record in the majors, he doesn't care and so much about spring training numbers. They matter a little bit more when he's not familiar with them. When it's young guys, you look at the numbers a little bit more than you do for veterans. But, I've always sort of felt like we've talked at length about how stocked their farm system is, and they're probably going to have to make a move at the deadline, and I think it'll probably be for a pitcher. And, they were already thin, and now to lose McKenzie before the year even starts, it's absolutely a concern because you weren't sure how much you could rely on Savali and Plesac to begin with. Well, now you're bumping them up another spot. They're your 3 and 4 starters.
Yeah.
So I don't think they're going to go out and make a trade right now. I don't think they're going to rush any of their young guys. Certainly not Esposito. He's not ready coming off the injury. I don't think Gavin Williams or Bybee are ready. They're not going to do anything rash like that. I think that they'll probably put Gaddis in there for now. He's stretched out enough. Some of those other guys aren't really stretched out. Gaddis has started a few spring training games. He can work deeper into games right now. So I think that's the route that they'll go in the short term. And then, we'll wait and see who's released on cut downs, if there's somebody they like better, or if there's a small move to make. But I don't think they're going to make a major move right now. And maybe Tristan's not out 8 weeks. Maybe he's back sooner. I think, we always jump into the worst case scenario that they put out of shutting him down for 2 weeks and could miss up to 8. And who knows? Maybe this goes to 9 or 10, or maybe he's back at 6. I don't know that we know yet. I don't think they make a drastic move now. I think they try and handle it internally for now, or maybe a small move. And then, as we get going here and they see where their holes are, they can address them at the trade deadline.
Mikey?
Yeah, Jason, got a couple YouTube comments I want to read to you here about this hit. Someone named Anthony Antonelli says, "Why does Jason look like a cocaine kingpin?" Oh, I got more. This is just the beginning. Evan419 says, "Jason looks like he parks his Corvette in front of valet, tosses the keys, and says, 'I'll hit you when I get back,' and winks at him while walking away." Someone named Garrett Bush says, "This dude Jason be out of town every week. Damn it, that athletic bag is different," with 17 exclamation marks. Corey McLaughlin says, "Jason Lloyd got them Johnny Bravo shades on."
There's so much hate.
Lawrence Goggins. No, it's going to end on a good note. Don't worry. It's going to end on a good note.
Good.
Jason, Lawrence Goggins says, "Jason looks like he presses charges for sure if you want to go there, buddy." King Beezit says, "There's definitely Mike's Hard Lemonade in that coffee mug." Corey also says, "Little known fact, Jason used to be in Smash Mouth." MJ says, "Jason Lloyd is the type of person to eat 20 White Castles and 5 beers in one sitting." That's kind of messed up. But Tony Masalelli and a bunch of people agreed with this says, Low-key, Jason is easily the most likable sports reporter I've ever seen.
Let's not get crazy.
It is all good fun.
No, I co-sign that last one. Very likable, very knowledgeable, great at his job. Keep doing you, man. It's working for you, Jay.
See you, Jason.
Oh, shoot. That's funny. All right, I'll be back with you guys. I'll be back with you guys next week. I'll see you.
Can't wait.
We'll see you later.
Can't wait.
The chat stays undefeated, man. Sometimes they do come through.
That is some funny. That is some funny stuff.
I had to. When I saw some of those rolling, I knew we couldn't let Jason.
Garrett, you actually jumped in there. And
I'll be in there all the time. I was in here talking to him. I'm like, y'all crazy, bro. Where you come up with these things at? This is crazy. That's why I like this show.
Speaking of which, we got to talk about memberships, Mikey.
There it is.
We do have to talk about memberships,
haven't done that this show.
and members are some of our favorite people in the entire world. And we had so many viewer questions on Friday that we're still doing them. We're going to wrap those up today in overtime.
By the way, yesterday I threw out on the starters tier, you'll get the Bull Moon next.
Yeah.
I had people ask me, is that real? Is it coming? Like,
we had Dan come in studio, and we did pitch it to Dan, who is
Yeah,
our photographer.
Dan said, listen, I think that's a low-key great idea. I'm down for it. I said, well, what you do is you just make it look like he's, flashing the moon, but you put a big bull face on top of his ass where it would be.
I got to figure that
And, we can call that the bull
I don't
moon.
think I'm actually going to have anybody take a picture of my ass. It's not really, my thing.
No, but you could pretend like you were
With a fake
posing
ass.
and then put the bull over your ass.
If somehow we make a UCSS OnlyFans, that'll be the first thing on the
There you go.
UCSS OnlyFans.
Let's
That
not
is
do
not
that.
in the cards. Steve Becker, that's a joke. Don't send an email. We know it's a joke. No OnlyFans coming. For a $4.99 a month, you can become a Coaches Tier member of the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. That gives you all the starter tier perks, overtime videos, and member shout-outs. You can text with Johnny Bravo, a.k.a. Jason the Cocaine Kingpin, during select Cavs games, maybe for the playoffs. We're working on that. We're special discount codes for merch and more. If you are not a member, sign up. We have awesome content that is behind the overtime wall.
I got a question
and
for
we
you.
appreciate it. One, before you ask your question,
Okay.
I do want to remind you for the last time today that Colleague Racing is the official NASCAR sponsor of Northeast Ohio, and it also sponsors a 12 o'clock lunch hour of the Ultimate Cleveland Sports
We're glad
Show.
they do.
What's up, Jason? Jay.
So we have some guys coming into the chat gifting memberships.
We do. Cody Clark did 5 yesterday.
What if I wanted to gift memberships, or if the show wanted to gift memberships?
Right.
Like I think I want to reciprocate the kindness that our viewers have shown.
Good point.
That's a good point.
So I would like to gift 10 memberships right now. Like I don't know how to do that though, because I'm not in the chat. I don't know any of that tech shit. I don't know anything about it.
You got the old man.
I got the old man, and you know what? Someone said this the other day. I wish I would have thought of this. He said, I'm not in that Twitter space, man. Y'all got toxic in there. I live my life in the real world, and I'm happy in here.
Right.
And that's my thing, too. Like, I love my space.
Don't jump.
I ain't going in there where it's toxic.
You got to have heart to go in there.
But I would like to gift 10 memberships, but I don't know how to do that. I don't know anything about it.
I'll get with you offline. I don't know
Okay.
how we have to get in there to do it.
And then how do we do it? Like, I don't want it to be random. I think it should be on a reward base.
You know what?
So, like, we pick the comment of the day for a week, and then I'll gift them a Coaches Tier membership.
That's dope.
Give us.
like it.
Yeah.
Let me talk to Ian to figure out how to logistically do that, but we can absolutely make that happen.
All right,
one way or
good,
another.
good.
So
I want to spread that love. It's the pay it forward.
Santa
deal.
J. Claus is coming to town.
Santa J.
And he's gonna help. Help them all going. I'm looking at the chat real quick just because sometimes when we're gonna do final takes here in a sec. They want me to read some of the J jokes. Some of the J jokes. You guys go a little mean at Jay sometimes.
Oh, listen, they
Sometimes you
come
guys
at
get
me.
a little mean with Jay.
But here's the beauty of it. I never see it.
He never see it.
I don't even know what you're saying. And truth be told, I don't care.
Maybe you know what? Maybe
Because I know what they want. They want to sit here.
Oh, yeah, they want that spot.
You
Right,
know,
of
when
course.
you, I didn't
Oh, I
do
get some
nearly as
nasty
much.
hate, too.
I didn't
Oh,
do
yeah,
nearly
yeah.
as much talk radio as you, but
Yeah.
I did. I used to do a show with Herb Street in Columbus on a fill-in basis pretty regularly.
right.
And the one thing I learned about, and I think it's the same thing. I think you tell me if I'm right. I think the people that go in the chat are the same people that would call a radio show.
Yes.
Am I right?
Yes. Yeah.
Like, they don't got a lot going on. They got a lot of free time.
And
And
if
they
they
might
met-
be in their mom's basement, as you said.
Some people, yeah.
They might be. Many of them are.
And they may be mean
really
to you.
want to do what you're doing.
And the best radio callers and the best people in chat are people that are
crazy.
There's like 5% are like really smart, intelligent, great people that
Sure.
have interesting, insightful comments. But then the other ones that are good are the people that are the idiots.
Yeah.
And say all kinds of outrageous, stupid stuff or want to fight, tell me they want me to have a heart attack and die, whatever. That's funny stuff.
I don't think that's funny.
Now, Bull is great.
I don't think that's funny.
During
if
the
you get
post
emotional, like I used to take things more personally. Now there's only, it's very rare that I take it personally anymore because people are just crazy on Twitter. I'm crazy on Twitter.
I do think that early in the business, you tend to, I don't even know if you listen to it, but you do tend to, I think, pay more attention to it. But after you've done this for like 5 or 10 years, you realize what it is.
Right.
You realize it,
doesn't
and
matter.
you just kind of roll with it. Now, all that being said, they help make us possible.
Absolutely,
to be here.
yes.
And we want to make them mad. We want to keep coming back every day.
Some people that make really stupid comments are great entertainment.
That's right.
Well, the thing is, like when we do the post-game show, the best entertainment quality is that people realize that if they super chat, they can just defame Bull, and he has to read that. So
I read a super chat calling Jay a Baker Bro the other day.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah. Oh yeah, I remember that, and I hadn't made a Baker Bro comment that day.
That's true.
There's like, you're
the
gonna
chat
read
stays
that.
undefeated.
I don't know that they're undefeated. I mean, like wishing someone would have a heart attack and die is not.
Well, that wasn't from. That was years ago on Twitter.
That was radio call.
You didn't get the super chat from that.
That was actually.
So what? Bull would on the super chat then?
Yeah.
You have to read them.
Yes.
Oh no, I didn't have to read it.
You
mean when we were doing the post game shows?
Yes.
I would see it.
Right.
But usually Mikey would read
No,
it.
if it was something like that, we'd filter those out.
But
yeah.
I don't care
Keep
if
your
people
money.
make fun of me as
Keep your
long
money.
as it's not anti-Semitic or stuff like that stuff.
Yeah.
That's
There is a line that you can cross.
Yeah, there is a line.
There is a line.
But
Yeah.
if you make fun of me being fat, what? I've never heard it before. I've heard it. There's nothing you can say about me being fat that I've never heard before.
So I used to call the radio all the time, especially when I was in school.
You were that guy?
And I remember when I called the radio one time after the Browns drafted Harrison Bryant, I said that they were going to bring in another tight end. And Bull called me an idiot. He goes, what an idiot. They just drafted a tight end. They got the Njoku. Oh, my God, these callers today.
His bang status.
So,
bro.
Earl, you've actually made the transformation from caller to in the business now.
I called when I was a kid.
Did you? I never
I
called.
used to call Mike and the Mad Dog when I was a kid.
never called.
Yes.
I never called. I would feel dirty
But
calling.
did you have, when you were a kid, was there full-time sports talk radio?
I listened to Pete Franklin every night.
But it was just one show, wasn't a whole...
No, back then it was much different. Pete Franklin owned the airwaves in Cleveland.
I had just turned 15 when The Fan went on the air in New York.
Oh, okay.
And I wanted to do it, so I would listen.
And you knew then that you wanted to do it.
Or something in sports. I knew that.
Yeah, I always felt like, to call a sports radio show and to make a comment.
Yeah.
I always felt like, to me, it always felt so desperate.
I always felt like I'm smarter than those guys. I'm going to call and make them look dumb. That was
to my point. That's most of them watching think that.
Yes.
That's what Earl did to you. Earl outsmarted you that day.
He did?
Well, did they sign another tight end?
Did they sign another tight end?
They did, but it was somebody that was like, that was a
slag.
jag.
It was a non. It was a
But I had told
guy.
him I thought it was gonna be like Kyle Rudolph after he got released, and he would tell me it was like no
I
way.
don't remember this, but like
You don't
it's always
remember
funny when people say, "I called you 16 months ago, and you told me I was an idiot for this," and I'm like, "Okay, maybe I did. I mean, I don't know."
Yeah, I mean, how in the hell you?
I
are
don't
you,
remember.
You're never. People will ask me that too. I'm like, I don't remember that.
When I did radio, I remembered people that called all the time. Like I knew
the regulars,
but I wouldn't remember what they said necessarily.
Yeah, right.
But
I know I downloaded
the
that.
Pete from Parma, like all these guys that have their own little like gimmick.
That's right.
Yeah, you can't forget those
the
guys.
Bostonian.
But 99% of the other guys just became their
right,
noise.
because if you don't call all the time, I'm not going to remember you.
And here,
by name.
here's what Herb Street always used to tell me this. He would ask him this: "What time's your show?"
Exactly.
I'll make sure I give it a listen.
Everybody thinks they can do. We do a job that everybody thinks they can do because if you're a big sports fan, you think you could do it. And there are probably some people in the audience, a small percentage,
very, very small percentage,
potentially do this.
Yeah.
But 99% of you
and
can't.
the other thing is too, I'm never going to come to 7-Eleven and tell them how to run the Slurpee machine. So stop telling me how to do my job. I think I'm doing just fine.
I have an idea.
Go ahead.
Anytime one of our guys, us, you, G, Bull, Jason, Tyvis, Brad, is on a remote hit.
Remote hit.
Whether you're in Arizona again, Bull calls in, he's sick, works from home.
Right.
We'll have the chat to respectfully roast them, just like we did with Jason, and we'll end each interview with a 2-minute roast.
That's fun.
That's great.
Fair.
I love that.
Yeah.
Love
but like Bull said, like you got to keep it. You know, it's got to be above board. Anybody says anti-Semitic, racist, even personal comments about your personal appearance, that's off limits.
I don't care about that stuff.
I know you don't,
but
you know, be a freaking human.
Yeah.
Crying out loud.
Be funny.
You ever grown up in an inner city
Be
school?
funny.
If Jason looks like Johnny Bravo, call him Johnny Bravo.
Did he look like Johnny Bravo?
Yeah, with the glasses on, he kind of did. That was a good one. I really like that one.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
I don't know Johnny Bravo. I don't even know what Johnny Bravo looks like.
Johnny Bravo was
a cartoon when like I was a kid.
No, you know what Johnny Bravo was? You might remember this. I'm the only one old enough here, I think. The Brady Bunch had an episode where Greg Brady was picked to be Johnny Bravo, not because he could sing and dance, but because he fit the suit.
That's right.
Johnny Bravo.
The Brady Bunch man.
Overtime.